All right, ladies and gentlemen, the show I look forward to the most, I would say, this NFL season, the Best Ball Mania 4 Leaderboard show. Today, it's going to be me. We got our guest, Jakob Sanderson. We're going to go game by game. We're going to talk about the top 12 scores. We're going to say what we saw, what we're looking forward to ahead. Excited to do this all. Let's rip this, gang. All right, I am your host, Liam Murphy. Today, our guest is Jakob, as I said. Getting some images open here on my end. Jakob, man, how about you tell the people how you are doing, how week 2 / the beginning of week 1 treated you this NFL season. Excited to talk shop with you here tonight. All right, we got that all set up. So just talk to us, Jakob. What's going on here?
Oh man, it's going good. You're unfortunately experiencing firsthand the joy of now being a 9 to 5 West Coast person while constantly trying to do multiple podcasts per night. Fair enough. People not exactly enthused to broadcast at 11 Eastern time. So my daily sprint through the Vancouver fall rain from the office back to my place to get everybody what they need and all of a sudden get on a mic and camera. It's becoming a staple for sure. So enjoying the season, pretty much other than the injuries.
Yeah. I mean, any discussion of week 2 really needs to start with the injuries. Unfortunately, it looks like we lost Nick Chubb for the course of the season. Saquon Barkley is going to miss 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks at least. Eckler, we'll see when he gets back.
I think I think it's been underreported that all of what we were expecting for Taylor, like to do I'm back, my ankle's hurt, like seems pretty interesting in the Eckler situation. I wouldn't be counting on him for a while.
Yeah, I mean, there was the one report that the NFL Players Association basically told the running backs to do what we all theorized could happen, where they said, hey guys, if you get nicked up, take a seat. And who are the guys we saw sit out this season? We saw Eckler threaten it. We saw Saquon threaten it. These are the guys who got hurt and are now doing that. It is interesting. So what I thought we'd do to begin here, what I like to do is I'm going to share this tweet I put out, which shows the top 12 scorers on the week, both from a week 2 perspective as the players who defined the week, and then from a season-long perspective. It's been a weird start to the season. We're seeing so we're going to get into a lot of this, but the elite quarterbacks, speaking for myself, I watched that Bills game. And teams are just sitting in cover 2 against Josh Allen, and he's not running the ball as much anymore. What does that mean for fantasy? Well, maybe it's better for his skill positions, honestly, if he's going to get a bunch of completions each game. But I think he's going to have to kind of do what Mahomes did, dink and dunk, prove he can beat cover 2, and then some defensive coordinators will start playing normal defense. Is Brian Flores going to let teams just run for 8 yards a clip on his defense, or is he actually going to try to stop them? But kicking it off at quarterback here, our number 1 quarterback on the week, Daniel Jones, who I think had 0 points at halftime.
Call it a comeback.
Yeah, I mean, literally 0 points at halftime. I don't know what to think of these Giants. It's not good. Cousins, on the other hand, he's definitely running hot with 29 points here, some of that in garbage time. But I think garbage time and the Vikings are going to go hand in hand as far as just
Yeah, they're a pass first team. This defense sucks. So like he has inflated stats, but he's going to constantly have inflated stats.
Yeah, a little bit of a resurgence for the elite quarterbacks here. Hurts and Josh Allen with fine games, but not separating from the late round quarterbacks.
Not separating from Josh Dobbs.
No, I mean, Josh Dobbs literally drafted at 0%. Don't even need to mention him. Herbert and Mahomes showing here at 22. Things that stick out to me at looking at this: Daniel Jones 32, Justin Herbert 22, QB 12, a 10-point spread. No quarterback was really essential this week. It's not like we saw anyone drop 40. And that gives me hope that as an elite quarterback drafter, the weeks where Josh Allen, Lamar, Hurts do drop 40, they really will separate. But this is not one of those weeks. Anything you want to touch on the top 12 quarterbacks?
No, I mean, it's interesting that you still see all those guys at the top, and within the top 12. But so far, it's really the elite quarterbacks providing the floor, right, where you don't have the Derek Carr 5. But it's certainly if for this week, if this was the finals, you probably would be best served being one of those teams that drafted the 3-4 late quarterbacks, because you're going to secure that floor probably just with a scattershot approach, and you're eventually going to match those guys. And then you might have some of those, elite players that are putting up those massive scores, but it could all change for sure. Yeah,
I mean, just a mini look ahead. Lamar gets the Colts this week. That could be a blow-up spot. Josh Allen gets.
We have Lamar on our main event team together, so I'm hoping to watch my Colts get absolutely shredded for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, Jacob, me, and Ron split a FFPC main event team. The team is a workhorse team. It's going to sit one of Breece Hall, Ayuk, or Puka Nacua basically each week. So pretty strong.
Probably Ayuk this week with the shoulder issue. So I want our players to just continue to sustain 1 week injuries to make our start-sit decisions easy, but so they don't have any ramifications on the playoffs. But it also keeps all their advance rates low. That's the goal. We just need one starter each week to sustain a very minor injury with no end of season ramifications.
Yeah, I mean, just finishing up the week 2 quarterbacks, things that are good signs to me. Geno Smith getting 23 with missing both the offensive tackles. I was worried about the offense, so that's good to see.
Really worried after week 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts ripping 26 with 2 rushing touchdowns. That's just going to be the Jalen Hurts show. I don't think teams are going to do what as far as how teams are approaching the elite quarterbacks, I don't think teams can do what the Vikings did against Hurts and what teams are doing against Josh Allen. I think it makes sense in the short run. Make Josh Allen prove he's not going to try to win the game each play, and make him prove he can dink and dunk. But after a couple games of the Eagles running for 8 yards a clip to Swift, or Josh Allen just hitting all of his weapons, I don't know. Our team's just going to sit and cover 2. What's your take on that, if any? The season is young. I don't think we as fantasy players talk enough about schematically how defenses are approaching offenses, or how that will change.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. I remember Gretsch and Sean talked about it a lot in the off season and trying to apply those macro level concepts to the NFL, or to fantasy. It's definitely taking effect, where you just have to see these guys kind of matriculate the ball down the field. I mean, we basically saw the Vikings, like you kind of mentioned, just effectively just concede first downs to Philly, repeatedly. Right? It was almost just you're not going to. I mean, and they did actually beat them deep a couple times, but theoretically, it was we're going to play 3 down linemen in a shell the entire game, and we're just going to dare you to either fumble or commit a holding penalty, or just lose the resolve to run. Right? Sometimes we just see teams they'll run, and then they'll be well, we have to mix in a pass, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and yeah, I mean, maybe Arthur Smith is right. Maybe when it's working, you just keep doing it until they literally stop you. I think that it almost has to change at some point, because the NFL is dynamic and it always changes. And at some point in time, teams will not want to just get beaten repeatedly over the middle and with running plays. We've seen
it almost worked. The Vikings fumbled the ball 3 times, and if they didn't, they maybe win that game. And it makes sense that if you make a team march down the field, they're going to fumble the ball. The defense gets a shot. It's hard to do that.
One thing that's notable to me, probably three of what I would consider the best play callers in the league: Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. Only three play callers right now with an over 30% target rate to the middle of the field between the hashes. I think that's pretty notable that we see kind of the coordinators that I trust the most to find answers to defensive solutions are focusing right in the middle of that shell where you'd want to be throwing it to. It's a copycat league. I think we'll see more and more teams start to target those areas of the field and maybe try to find explosive plays, more trying to split the defense. You saw kind of, we had the George Pickens touchdown was not like a boundary go route. It was basically like a deep crosser in the middle of the field where he found a soft spot, and now it's a one-on-one with the defender, right? We saw the Garrett Wilson touchdown was somewhat similar, where you got a really explosive play off of a deep in route, and now it's a one-on-one, my guy against your guy. To me, that's going to be, I think, where we see a lot of the explosive plays coming from is, can we find ways to clear defenders out of space, scheme a playmaker open into the middle of the field, 15, 20 yards down the field where you're behind the front seven, but now you have a chance to just beat a safety one-on-one to the end zone. I think back to all those Odell Beckham touchdowns in his prime with the Giants, that he would catch a slant, break one tackle, see you later. That might be, more of the explosive plays than the throw it 45-yard bomb to Jamar Chase down the sideline explosive plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think the season is going to be somewhat like, did you play the Bears this week? That quarterback did well. Did you play in the intermediate? It's like, did you play the Eagles? Like, because their secondary is looking real bad. That quarterback's probably doing well.
Back.
And then it's going to be the elite. I mean, I think the elite guys have to separate over the course of a season, but like, this is looking at the top 12 as far as like, I think Tua is going to climb. I'm not so sure how I feel about Russell Wilson. They're playing very slow. I'm not into the Broncos really.
He is like fluking it out. I mean, they got to play Mims more would be my one take on them, because the only thing
and Judy will play more.
Sorry?
And Judy will play more, who just came back.
But Mims to me is the one that I watched almost all that game yesterday, and the only thing Russ can still do, like prime Russ, is throw really, really beautiful deep balls. Like that's all he's got, and that's what defenses don't give you anyway right now, which sucks. But like, I don't know how many times I watched him drop back in the pocket with no awareness whatsoever, realize he was about to get sacked, do the thing that he always does, which is like do the spin move out of the sack, and it used to always end well, and now it just ends poorly every single time. He has absolutely no juice left. So all those.
Well, and on that note of Russ hitting Mims in that game, that to me is a question of, are the Commanders and Jack Del Rio just like, we're not doing this cover 2 shit? Like,
Jack Del Rio is a boomer.
Or is it like, against Josh Allen, we're going to do cover 2, against Russell Wilson, we're going to make him beat us? That's my question of the season right now.
Right, but some of these defensive coordinators are just steadfast. Like Gus Bradley is not playing the cover 2. It's not happening. He is going to play his system no matter what. He is like, in terms of he is going to sit in his cover 3 like he was doing 10 years ago, and he will not evolve. And his secondary of 3 UDFAs and a defensive coordinator who refuses to try will continue to get torched every single week. It doesn't matter who they're going to play. I promise you. But yeah, the Russell Wilson thing, it's a good point. I don't know how many times he's going to have the opportunity to get those really favorable looks against more serious defenses. But yeah, they need Mims, because like that's the only thing you can do is those deep balls. So he's gonna have some ugly games if those are taken away. And I don't know why Mims is only running 5 routes, because
I think Max a mirage here. Like I think he's had 2+ matchups. Richardson could legitimately have like 60 points if he didn't get concussed in that game and be
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
I was 18 points out of first in my DK contest with Richardson, and I'm looking at none of the lineups ahead of me have Richardson. I'm like looking at my lineup. I'm like, could he get me 18 more? I was like, I think he would have got me 18 more.
50 points was realistic there. Richardson could run away with QB1 on the season. He's got an easy schedule. That's a big part of it. But Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, they'll be here. Josh Allen's quarterback 13. He's going to creep up here. Pretty narrow here. Not much to talk about there. Looking at running back, a little bit of resurgence for running back this week. No one did anything crazy. I mean, Jerome Ford almost got
RB energy in the top 4 there.
Yeah, very 0 RB on the season. Brian Robinson, Swift, Mostert, Kyron Williams, Barkley, Jerome Ford, CMC It's going to give us his 20 each week. I think like the season's going to be defined by these Pollard hero teams, these CMC hero teams, these Bijan hero teams. And then for your 0 RB teams, did you get Swift? Did you get Mostert? Did you get Cook? Did you get Kyron Williams? Did you get Jerome Ford? Guys like that. Barkley teams, if you have a Barkley team on leaderboard, that's probably going to free fall. Eckler teams, we'll see about him. Mostert, like, I don't think will hold up as much, but I mean, let's kick it off with Kyron Williams, man. I mean, because is Kyron Williams an RB1 right now?
I don't think so. I think that he is going to be a workhorse. I wrote about him pretty extensively today. I think he's going to kind of do what Devin Singletary did at the end of the 2021 Bills season and playoffs, which was basically they were like, we are a passing offense. The rushing is like something we do to mix it up every now and again, but it's not the driver of our offense. So what do we want out of our running back? We want the guy who is going to provide the most flexibility for us to call whatever we want, not tip it to the defense. And the guy who's going to allow us not to have to substitute when we want to distribute between plays so that we can play fast and we can play up tempo, right? That's to me kind of what really they were like, we're leaning into the Singletary thing, not because Singletary is good. I mean, you would know this better than me as the Bills fan, but like Singletary is not like a good player, but he was just like, as Davis would say, cromulent in all areas.
He could pass block. That's why.
And they were just like, we're just running our offense like with the running back. It's just like an ancillary piece how we're running our offense. And he was useful for fantasy. He was certainly not as useful as most running backs, seeing 100% snap shares, but he was an every week starter. I view Kyron similarly, where they look at it and they're like, I wrote about this after the first week. I was like, it's every time that they use Cam Akers this way, where they're just like, we're only using him on rush downs, he's so inefficient because the whole defense knows what's coming. And part of the magic of the McVay 11 personnel thing over the years is like, we want to stay in our personnel grouping the whole way down the field so that we can play fast and not let the defense substitute. When you're ticking Cam Akers on and off the field every time you want to run a run play, you lose that. To me, with Kyron, it's like Stafford looks back. We have these young receivers. We trust them. We're going to throw it. And all Kyron needs to do is like not fuck up in the run game. And otherwise, he's just there to pass block, catch passes, and be a guy that the defense can't tell what's coming. And you don't have to substitute your personnel so the defense can't substitute your personnel. So I think he's going to play like a ton of snaps. I just don't think he's going to score fantasy points that frequently. Even on his routes this year, he's 9 or 11 targets on 76 routes. Stafford has had a really, really low check down rate since coming to the Rams.
10 targets this game, though, right?
I believe 9 targets in this game and 2 in the previous.
So to me,
but he ran like 50 routes in this game.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think Kyron is running hot on touchdowns. Like, he doesn't have that many, goal line carries. But I did not I have 17% Kyron Williams because what I thought he was at least a James White, at least a Theo Riddick type, going to catch passes. That was the report in camps. He sat all of the preseason games, which is like incredibly great sign for you. That's why I was in on him. I actually knew he was like an RB2 versus like Zach Evans. And then I think he honestly is going to be a fringe RB1, if not more than that, like a top 12 running back, because I really think the floor is going to be there where he's going to have 6, 7 targets, maybe like a bunch of weeks. And then, he's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week. He's not going to score a touchdown every week, but he seems to have a monopoly on the goal line carries, roughly like 90% of the goal line usage right now. And the Rams are good, man. So as long as Stafford is healthy, I think Kyron is a league winner. Obviously, I'd rather have Puka Nacua than him. And surprisingly to me, Puka Nacua drafted on 30% of Best Ball Mania 4 teams. Kyron Williams, 20%. Little surprised Kyron was not drafted higher. I guess, I don't know. I had a bit of a blind spot on Puka Nacua, but on the running backs, RB1, 28, RB12, 18, moving to the top 12 on the season. Saquon's going to drop off here. Anything?
It's kind of crazy that like just the way that you win Best Ball this year might have just been like, what if Stafford's good? I'm not taking his dusty, shitty players. I'm just going to take all the young guys. You literally could have finished every draft after Cup's injury. Round 15, Stafford. Round 16, Nacua. Round 17, Tutu. Round 18, Kyron. And nobody would have stopped you. And like, if you had done that, you just have like the best team in the tournament. right? Like it's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
pretty upsetting. how like
No, I mean,
kind of
we're gonna.
foreseeable it was. And I have Kyron mixed in. I have a little bit of Tutu. I have a little bit of Puka mixed in, but I don't think I ever did. Like I'm just taking all three of them and Stafford and let's see what happens. And it's like silly that I didn't. I have no idea why to do that. Like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot I'm happy about, but I don't think my process was perfect. And I knew this during the draft season where a lot of the guys I faded, like I almost full faded Nick Chubb. And so to only have 10% Jerome Ford is just like not logical application. Same with like Eckler, where like I almost full faded
Eckler.
Eckler.
Over on Ford, and I got sketched by the hamstring injury, which I clearly shouldn't have.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is like I drafted a lot of Kyron. I drafted a lot of Ford early. I have very few teams with Kyron and Ford because when Ford got hurt is when I started drafting Kyron. So that's a bit of a blind spot. You're like, yeah, just like I got real confident on Tutu at the end. I actually was in on like I felt that Stafford could be good. I was like, yeah, why can't Stafford be like 20 points per game? I didn't think like he'd be top in the league, but so I'm a little bit up. And there was like some big lovers of Puka Nacua. I honestly like was lazy on reading the camp reports for them too, because I drafted Kyron, I drafted Tutu at like a pretty high clip for both of them. We'll get to why I don't have more Tutu. R.I.P. Deontay Hardy, not looking great there. A little bit of a Bills blinder, but I mean, looking at the top 12 running backs, guys who I expect to like really separate are like Tony Pollard, where I don't think we felt the strength of these Tony Pollard teams. He was my like I have like 25% Tony Pollard, feel really good about him.
Yeah.
I'm thankful Antonio Gibson got more expensive because when Gibson opened in the 130, I was drafting Gibson, and when he got around Brian Robinson, I started drafting Brian Robinson. That would have been like a blind spot.
Yeah, and my very starting column when I was like 10 players to build your best ball championships around, like Gibson was on the list.
Like everyone was the same way, man.
And then I actually ended up underweight on Gibson. I think I drafted. I'm also slightly underweight on Robinson, which is a mistake. But I would have been like, had the prices stayed as they were at the very beginning, I probably would have been like 25% Gibson and like 2% Robinson. Whereas I think I ended up, I don't know, somewhere between like 6 and 8 on each.
Which just shows you how binary best ball is. Like we don't realize how like we're like, oh, I'm getting a running back, and we're like we feel good, like, oh, I get a running back 2 rounds cheaper, Gibson versus Brian Robinson. But it's literally that binary of like Brian Robinson could have like 3 30-point games, and then Gibson could have like 5 points per game. Like that is in the range of outcomes.
I really wish that when I did my Hitchhiker's Guide in the summer, like I just kind of picked the order of which I wanted to write about the backfields at random. And I came away actually like way more optimistic on Robinson after writing up that backfield, but it was like literally the last backfield that I did. So I only had like a week of feeling great about Robinson, whereas like if I just go back in time and I wrote that article like 3 weeks earlier, I probably have like 15% Robinson. But like I had gone in with the idea of like I like Gibson more. And then I wrote it and I was like, oh, I actually like Robinson more. and I was like, it's kind of too late, but I'm going to take him a lot at the very end.
I mean, I was just saved by the price change because I just stopped drafting Gibson, honestly. Derrick Henry, I think, will fall off as the season goes. He's like splitting usage with Spears. Allgeier's going to have his weeks. Walker seems to have like a pretty strong monopoly. We'll see how Charbonnet eats into that as the season goes. Swift, I mean, looking league winner. And Cook, the good thing about Cook, man, is yes, Lat Murray's going to be involved. Yes, Damian Harris is going to get some short yardage, but he's going to score. Like, if teams are sitting 2 safeties against Buffalo, the plan is literally like throw to the bowling balls and the tight ends, and then throw to the fast guy and Cook for these like 6 targets a game. And so he doesn't even need touchdowns to smash. Anything you want to say before we move on to wideouts?
No, that's fine with me. I totally agree that it's CMC, Pollard, and Bijan, and then I think there's like a massive gap after those 3 to really any other running back. Like now that Chubb, Eckler, Barkley have been cleared out, and you look. I
mean, Swift could be the RB4, man. If you want to tell me that,
Swift. I mean, I think it's plausible. I'm not quite there yet on a guy where he literally played like 19 snaps in the first week and everyone was healthy. Like it takes a little while for me to go from there to he's the RB4. You even have the team, like what was it? The running backs coach came out today and he was like, it's going to be a different guy every week. We're keeping everybody fresh. Like, I think part of that's coach speak. And I am very optimistic about Swift. And I'm really glad that I got heavy on him late, but I still think it's going to be inconsistent. Like I think it's going to be, I'm more excited about I'm very excited about all my Swift teams. I'm most excited about my Swift best ball teams because I do still think there's going to be weeks where he scores like 2 points that you don't have to worry about. That is going to tilt the shit out of you if you're starting him and managed. But I don't know. I think he'll be like a fringe RB1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As far like RB1 means whatever to me. Can he have 4 30-point games? Like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah, I just hope that for one or two of the weeks out of the final 3 in the playoff, he gets that role that we saw and he crushes. And I think that's like very, very in the realm of possibilities.
And the real question is like, our team's going to do what the Vikings did. I don't think Penny's dead this season because to me, if you thought he was going to be a total dead this season, like unusable, you throw him on PUP and you say, let's do it next year, Penny. If you think he's hurt and he's going to be more efficient later, which maybe they think, then I don't know, like Penny week 13 plus, like, I don't know. Maybe that's some bad coping, but it's not looking great for my Penny bags. Luckily, I just
what was your order of drafting on the Eagles running backs?
On BBM 4, I have 17% of Gainwell, Swift, and Penny. So like, I just decided I want the backfield. I don't know who it is. Give me all of them.
I was 14% Swift, 10% Gainwell, 4% Penny, which honestly feels great. But we'll
feels great right now. Yeah.
Change, yeah.
Wide receiver. I'm not convinced all these guys that did well this week are going to crush moving forward. Mainly like Mike Evans. I don't think Mike Evans.
You dared out number 4 on the list, baby.
Nico Collins is a guy who like every year
drafted player.
I drafted Nico Collins was the same thing as Antonio Gibson to me, where like I drafted him a bunch and have probably like 20% in BBM4 because he opened so cheap. But when he was a 10th rounder, that's when I started wanting the running backs and tight ends in that range.
Fair enough.
Maybe that's bad. Maybe that isn't.
That was the disagreement I had with Pat because I remember he wrote the Nico Collins column like in March, whatever. And I was like way in on the Nico. He was like my number 1 guy early in the season I was writing about. And then he got more expensive. A lot of people backed out. I did not. I continued to draft him. He's my most drafted player. I'm pumped about him. We'll see. It's kind of weird they're not giving him a full complement of routes. I assume that like has to change because he's the guy that's making all of the downfield plays for their offense. But you know what's weird looking at that list? We're talking about all the cover 2 shell, taking away explosive plays. Isn't it kind of strange that you're looking at the top of the list and it's like Mike Evans, outside clasher, T. Higgins, outside clasher, Nico Collins, outside clasher? Like, well, you know, it's kind of interesting how these guys are evolving.
I think Mike Evans, like, I don't think Mike Evans is going to be a league winner. I think he's going to, like, I think he crushed the Bears. I think he's going to be great this week against the Eagles. But then, like, against the Saints, I'm not convinced. Against the Panthers, against the Falcons, games like that, I don't think he'll crush. I mean, T. Higgins was like some garbage time touchdowns, and Joe Burrow's hurt, so
this is garbage time. I'm pretty sure when he scored his last touchdown, it cut it to like 3 points.
They did close. They did close it. I don't know, man. Like T. Higgins, like yard of separation is like half a yard. So, like, yeah, he is going to like he needs to be very good to score a lot of points. I'm not convinced.
T. Higgins is very dependent on Burrow not like going on injured reserve or something. Like,
yeah, and someone has a lot of Jamar Chase. It's not. I think we already need to accept.
Less dependent on that.
Yeah, I just think that like we need to accept with Chase that he's going to be a low advance rate, high leverage player for playoffs because Burrow's going to sit this week. I think.
I'm not quite. I mean, yes, but I think Chase could survive the quarterback change like way better. He's a way more complete receiver. I could see a scenario where a backup quarterback comes in and he's not excited about throwing a bunch of back shoulder fades to T. Higgins 30
and
yards
Chase
down
gets
the
like
field
18 targets a game.
And exactly, like I can see a scenario where the offense is worse, but now Chase's target share is 43% and Higgins is 9. Like I think that's like a possibility. Whereas Higgins, like that's why it's kind of weird that he like as a dynasty investor, I'm like, please be in the Bengals' future plans because like I think he is such a perfect receiver for Joe Burrow. No, I don't think he is either. But to me, they need each other. Like, I think he is so perfect for Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense. He's awesome. But I think a lot of quarterbacks, he would be in hell. Like, he's like a very specific cog for a specific wheel, I think.
Let me ask you this: T. Higgins or Devonta Smith? And assume Burrow misses this week and he's 100% healthy, which I think is way optimistic. I think he's going to be bad for like 3 weeks at least more. But
yeah, well, you give me that hypothetical, I would take T. Higgins, but in
I'm
reality,
Smith there.
I'm Smith for sure.
T. Higgins or Calvin Ridley?
Sure. I would be Ridley.
I'm Ridley. T. Higgins.
This felt like the classic. Remember when Cooper Kupp had the big breakout, and then Robert Woods had the squeaky wheel game, and then they were like, "That was nice, Robert," and now we're just going to throw it to Cooper Kupp. Season. That was how I felt about this game. Was like they have to like show Christian Kirk that he's.
We'll say hi to you on the Texans, Robert.
And now they're like going to get serious and throw to. That was like exactly. It reminded me of that Thursday night game against Seattle when they like went back to Woods for one game. So. I
heard some rumblings that Kirk is good against man, but like Ridley.
Yeah,
I mean, Ridley almost had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
T.
I
Higgins
played Kirk in
or
all my
Waddle.
DFS lineups this week, and then he's not gonna be anymore. T. Higgins or Waddle. Yeah, I would probably still go with Waddle in best ball. Like,
Yeah,
I'm always like under. Like, I'm definitely gonna be under on Waddle's talent overall, and I'm always like less interested in him in like dynasty and managed leagues. I'm kind of the Sam Sherman. He's not the 1B, he's the 2 mindset. I just don't apply that to best ball because like this is one of the few offenses that I'm actually excited about rostering pieces of, and he's really explosive and fun. So I don't really care what his advance rate is. I don't really care what his target share is. If I scroll into a week 17 team in Best Ball Mania and Jalen Waddle's on it, I'm pumped. Like he could get 40. So
I mean, I don't know, man. Like T. Higgins basically being like fancy Mike Williams, fancy Mike Evans at 2-3 turn, like. That was a kind of a fade for me this season. I think he's going to have weeks like this, but it's tough to be so touchdown dependent, like a souped up Gabe Davis, which I know you hate Gabe Davis, but I mean, Puka Nacua, man.
I don't hate Gabe Davis.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Puka Nacua, league winner, unquestionable. The question is what happens when Kupp returns, if he comes back. Real blind spot for me not having enough Puka Nacua. Good news is managed. Unloaded the clip, got him everywhere. So at least we got that hedge. Anything else to touch on these wideouts? I don't even know. Brandon Johnson is a Bronco, I think. Like
he's also the mayor of Chicago, but yeah.
And Justin Jefferson smashing as usual. CD Lamb gonna have better weeks than week 1. Season long. Tyreek Hill with a solid 10-point gap on the wide receiver 2. Mike Evans. Again, I don't think Mike Evans is going to be a league winner like he's been.
No, the Bears and the Vikings are probably 2 of the worst defenses we have on offer. Like I'm not buying into the Bucs are actually good stuff. Yeah, I think
they're serviceable against bad D's.
Yeah, sure. But they've played 2 like horrible defenses.
Yeah. Someone's saying here Puka Nacua will come back to earth. What does coming back to earth even mean?
Like, what's earth? If you're telling me earth is to cite him again, if you're telling me Earth is 2021, if Earth is 2021 Robert Woods, okay, that's plausible. If Earth is like Travis Fulgham, like no, it's not happening. Like
no, that's the thing that like everyone felt smart about touting who's played fantasy football for a while. Like, don't forget Travis Fulgham. It's like this is not Travis Fulgham.
Yeah, I can see him being a mid-range to high-end wide receiver 2 if Kupp comes back and he's Cooper Kupp again. But it's also like very possible that Kupp comes back and is not Cooper Kupp again, or he doesn't come back, or he comes back and then immediately re-injures himself. Like I have a lot of Kupp investment, so I hope that he just comes back week 5 and is Cooper Kupp for the rest of the season. That would be sweet. I don't think that's like a lock. It's probably not even likely.
Why can't Puka Nacua and Kupp be like Tyreek and Waddle, be like Chase and Higgins, where, I mean, I think Tutu Atwell is not going away. I think Tutu Atwell even is a league winner. I floated out where, like, whatever, Tutu Atwell going to be like 12 points per game on the season. But to me, Van Jefferson fades away in the offense.
Yeah, he's already faded away. I don't think that they can be Tyreek and Waddle because they don't have that type of efficiency upside. Like even when Puka's just been dominating, it's a lot of like 10-yard ins, catches, zone beaters. Like he
not getting
needs
to
the
20
volume.
targets when Cup's back.
Right, like for Puka to drop 30, he does kind of need 15 targets. Like he's not, or multiple touchdowns, but he's not going to have like Jalen Waddle will have games this year where he has 6 targets, 5 catches, 162 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like Puka's not going to do that. So that's why I think, but he can, like we have seen the Rams. No, well, he gets a lot of downfield usage, but yeah, I think that they can be. I mean, they can be Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, right? Like we have seen in this offense.
But that didn't have a 2-2
record. No, but that was before like the true Cooper Kupp breakout. Here's maybe what I think is possible. Like maybe Cooper Kupp is back and he's still really good, but they're not like we're giving you 40% of the targets. Like what if it's Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Sammy Watkins, where it's like 2 borderline wide receiver ones. And 2-2 to Sammy Watkins, where like you didn't want to start him every week, but Sammy Watkins had spike weeks that year. He legitimately had like 3 or 4 big spike weeks that year. And then the next week he'd have 1 target, but then one week he'd have 6 targets and he'd have legitimate upside. Like, and then with Cooks the following year, in that role. So we've seen them kind of sustain like 3 guys. Van Jefferson at 800 yards when Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp had.
Okay, so that's 2-2, yeah. But I mean, in the interim, what's exciting about the offense is it's basically 2-2, Puka, and Kyron, and like fringe usage of Higbee, Van, and yeah. Moving on to tight end, the cover boy this week, TJ Hawkinson, and that's to me because when you don't have a guy Tyreek Hill in a given week, if this was week 17, the Best Ball Mania 4 finals, TJ Hawkinson would be on the winning team quite a bit because he gapped the tight end 2 by 8 points here with two touchdowns, including 1 garbage time touchdown. He gapped the tight end 6 through 12 by 13 points. So this just shows the power. Last week was everyone felt great about the late round tight end. I still think those people feel okay, but like Kelsey almost had 2 touchdowns. Waller here, Andrews here, who didn't play week 1, Hawkinson here. Where do you got Hawkinson finishing rest of the season, man? I mean, these Vikings pieces.
I have such a hard time with Hawkinson because I just dislike him so strenuously.
I know so many people hate him. I
think he's just an incredibly useless football player, and like I'm quite sure that he's like he's literally just Zach Ertz, like reincarnated. And
sure,
I like despise watching him.
Zach Ertz has been like 19 targets this season.
I know it's like I know it's so tilting. So like to me, TJ Hawkinson is basically like the prime Zach Ertz season, where it's like,
and he's the cover 2 guy. Like if it's going to be, if it's going to be like,
I mean, their pass rate is gonna like regress a little bit just because like not literally every game can go this way where they just give up 1 million points and they have to throw 55 times to come back. But like most of their games probably will look like that. So I think like is Hawkinson gonna just continue to have like an extremely unimpressive weighted opportunity rating and yards per route run? Absolutely, and he's probably just gonna like keep racking up points regardless. He's gonna need to score touchdowns because he's gonna have, I think, more weeks, and we saw this last year. Like
every tight end needs to, though, right?
He's gonna have more weeks that look like week 1, where he has like a bunch of targets. It turns them into a bunch of catches for very few yards because just so many of his targets are like 6-yard hitch routes that just don't really do very much in half PPR. But I think that, if he gets the touchdowns, like he just has such a built-in floor that it's going to be totally workable for fantasy. I think in like the main event,
pretty outscore Mark Andrews
tight end premium on the season. I still like prefer Andrews' profile, and I prefer having
but profile doesn't like the real question is how many passing yards is Lamar going to do a game?
I would much rather have Andrews because I think Andrews has like 40-point upside in a way that I don't really think Hawk does because he's so inefficient. And I think
he's going to Hawkinson's going to need to do what he did.
Andrews can gap the position without multiple touchdowns. Like Andrews can have 130 yards on 7 catches and 1 touchdown. Like the Hawkinson game that he just had is like the Hawkinson game that he needs to keep having. So I think I would rather have Andrews, but like it wouldn't surprise me if Hawk outscored him. But even like,
yeah, and I mean that's
even if
where I
Hawkins
was
outscored him by 30 points, I still would rather have Andrews going into the week 17. It's like my take
sure.
on it.
I mean, I have a lot of Hawkinson, and to me, like I see both sides of the coin as someone that has a lot of them. Where it's like he kind of needs to do this, where it's like 80 yards, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, some games to like get his points up. But when he gets those 2 touchdowns, if Andrews doesn't smash, if Kelsey doesn't smash, if Waller doesn't smash, like he's the guy you need those weeks. And the real question is like, should you have taken White out in that range and or Aaron Jones or Ken Walker, where you need to start 3 wide receivers a week, or Hawks floor ceiling combo? Like, how valuable is that? I mean, Hawkinson could have 5 points next week. Like, that's the thing about tight end. But if he has a couple 20+ point per game, 20 games, like, not to especially with like Kelsey age concerns and injury, Mark Andrews injury and age concerns, plus like maybe he's the 2 now to Zay Flowers eventually. I don't know.
I mean, he was not the 2 this week, and it was his first week off injury, so I think he is not the 2.
Yeah. All right. The season-long tight ends before we get into looking at some teams. We're going long here. Hawkinson, number 1. Hunter Henry, number 2. The tight end 12. Dawson Knox at 13 with a touchdown. Tight end 13, Dalton Kincaid. Nothing really sticking out here other than every tight end is perfectly cromulent, as Davis would say, except Hawkinson when he scored 2 touchdowns, or Hunter Henry who had a touchdown in each week.
For the record, I'm just seeing people, like I saw Cole's comment with Flowers breaking out. I don't think Andrew consolidates target share like he did in past years. I mean, you never know. It was only 1 game, but like he just came off of a quad injury and just like immediately saw 25% target share. So I feel like pretty good about Andrew.
But we got to expect Bateman to get more of the pie as the season goes too, right?
That was the thing to me is like routes. And you'd think that he's probably a better target earner on his routes than OBJ on his. But I'm not. It's not like it just comes out of nowhere, right? Like Nelson Aguilar saw 6 targets this week. So like if Bateman is running more routes, then that means Aguilar's running less. And so like maybe Bateman earns a higher clip of targets per route than Aguilar. But I think it kind of takes from everybody a little bit. I'm still pretty fired up about Andrews. I thought the Ravens. I'm pumped about the whole Ravens offense this week. They looked like kind of out of sorts in week 1, which I think was in part just due to like they don't have their best offensive player going in, and then they lose one of their other best offensive players right into the game, and so they're just like, all right, we're just going to spam Flowers. But they look legit in this Bengals game, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I like half bought into the Ravens explosion, where like in many ways they stuck out as this year's Eagles, except for the cost on Lamar. On the other hand, though, like the math, frankly, didn't math for me as how Andrews and Flowers and Bateman and OBJ were going to pay off with a rushing quarterback who, frankly, like Lamar needs to prove it this season, man, because compared to some of the other elite quarterbacks, Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, I don't feel quite the same about him as far as like a real life quarterback. I know he had that crazy season, but like, I mean, I know you're big.
This is like, oh my God. This drives me nuts.
I don't, man. Like the Bills just like teams just play him in zone and keep him in front.
Better. I think Lamar is like a substantially better real life quarterback than Josh Allen.
Oh, I mean, I think that's very wrong, but
we're gonna see the playoffs this year. We'll see.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Like Lamar, the thing about him is there's no more excuses now without Greg Roman, because Greg Roman was awful.
No
Todd Monken is not. He's got weapons now. Let's see it.
Totally agree. There's no excuses. Absolutely no excuses. But
all right, moving on.
But I don't think he needs them this week. And also, I think that the thesis on their passing game, totally agree with the math. Thesis was Lamar hits, Andrews hits, and one of the other receivers hits. Like, to me, that was the take. And it was like, I'm just going to draft. Well, I wasn't drafting OBJ. But to me, it was like, I'm taking Lamar. I'm taking Andrews. I'm occasionally taking OBJ, very rarely. And I'm just going to hammer Flowers and Bateman and see which one produces a winner. Because to me, that's what can happen is like, if the offense hits, it can be Lamar and Andrews in one. I don't think Flowers and Bateman could both like hit the same time, but I don't think we need to treat picks like that in like round 8.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little expensive to be taking on like the downside of I mean, Jacob's wilding for the Lamar's a better real life quarterback than Josh. But anyways, let's jump into the segment where we look at our top scoring teams.
All right,
I can
let's do
see your team has Ryan Tannehill on it, your top dog team. 290
Well,
points.
it has Cooper Kupp and Kyle Pitts on it.
Talk to us about the team. Talk to us about it.
Well, I'm pretty pumped that this is my highest scoring team because it.
Jacob, what the fuck is this light mode, man? You got to get the dark mode on. This is embarrassing.
Look, I had to get a screenshot from my laptop because it wasn't even like working on my phone. This is a disaster. But I mean, the most fun thing about this team is like, I wish it had Puka because I have Stafford and Kyron and Kupp. So there's like no real excuse for it not to have Puka. Every time I look at Isaiah Hodgins, I just want him to be Puka. But the nice thing is like to have all these points in the bank with Cooper Kupp on the squad and Kyle Pitts on the squad is like pretty fun. Kupp, I mean, I feel like better about Kupp than I did when I was drafting him because I still have all the same injury concerns with him. I've seen some people bring up like Puka concerns. I don't have Puka concerns. Like I think if Kupp is great, he's still going to be awesome and Puka can fit in alongside him. I don't think he's like stealing Kupp's job or anything like that.
Can you just read the players off?
It's Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Javonte Williams, Brian Robinson, Devon A-Chain, Tyler Algier, Roshan Johnson, Kyron Williams, Stephon Diggs, Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Traylon Burks, Isaiah Hodgins, Kyle Pitts, and K-Dot. By the way, this was the last Best Ball Mania team I drafted.
I was going to say, to have Diggs and Kupp is a giveaway that this was a late team. I mean, yeah, what you said is 100% true to me. Very exciting to have Kupp on your highest scoring team and that would be the same case for me with like Christian Watson, Eckler, Saquon. If you can carry any of these guys and stay afloat for like the regular season leaderboard, it's exciting to have these guys where no one else really will.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird team. Like I took I'm seeing how the fuck Diggs and Kupp. I got Kupp in the mid-third in this one because it was like the last day of Best Ball Mini drafts. And then I did Diggs and Smith. I took Smith like clearly ahead of ADP because I was like, okay, I want to give myself the most possible outs to get one of Allen or Hurts stacks. So I did the Smith pull early with Diggs. I think I did like 6 Diggs and then Smith at like 17 or whatever the math is, 19. And then then they didn't come back, but then I got this Kupp start, which was kind of fun. We'll see. Obviously, I wanted Ritter on this team instead of Tannehill.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you get sniped there?
But I got sniped on Desmond Ritter, unfortunately, which was very annoying. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, it's fun.
How are you feeling about Javonte, man?
Great.
You are?
I feel fantastic about Javonte. That's a guy where, I mean, Piron is like already dusted. He's just like playing catch-up mode, pass catching, but Javonte is already the clear-cut lead rusher in their usage.
More points rest of season, Kyron Williams or Javonte Williams?
Probably Kyron Williams.
Yeah. I mean, that's exciting for Kyron. That's real exciting. I mean, this is a very exciting team. I don't know how I feel about like. I guess Pitts is exciting if he can get
useful at some point. I still feel like I'm already giving up on the idea that Pitts is like a high advanced rate player, which I thought was actually possible in the 7th round, unlike maybe in previous years. But yeah. I have not given up on the possibility of Kyle Pitts is the guy you need. I'm seeing P. Ryan out snap on it. Yeah, I don't really care that much about the snaps early in the season. To me, it's about the like intention of their usage. P. Ryan snaps are basically just coming when they're in comeback mode in the 2-minute drill on 3rd downs, and he's out there pass protecting and running routes, which in the interim is bad. Like if you're like talking, should I start Javonte this week? If you think they're going to get blown out, then you shouldn't. But I think what it projects, like they do clearly recognize Javonte is the best runner on the team, and he's shown receiving upside in the past. So I think if we're projecting to what does this team look like in week 15 through 17, if Javonte is healthier, then hopefully he's getting all of the work because I think that they're signaling that they want the ball in his hands more than P-Ryan. He's getting more touches.
Yeah, I mean, Pitts and Kittle to me were 3 tight end more often than not, and I think that like kind of shows like the type of play, the high ceiling, low floor players. Doesn't feel great for their costs, but like I still drafted them. Exciting team overall, though. Like some late guys, too, where Devon Chain should be late guy. Roshan, like immediate / late. Strong wide receiver crew. Really strong with like Ayuk, a little banged up, but should be fine. A fine enough QB room. Like Matthew Stafford, exciting. Jones will have some games like that. Tannehill, I think, will get benched eventually, but we'll see there.
I tend to agree, but whatever. That should have been Ritter.
Yeah.
Who also
could be benched. Yeah. My top team I'm real excited about. It was actually my 100th Best Ball Mania 4 team. It was streamed, so you can go back and watch my 100th team. It's a Josh Allen Lawrence team, which I still think Josh Allen's going to finish as top 1, top 2, top 3 fantasy quarterback and real life quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, man, we're going to talk about the Jags later, but their passing, like their O-line, I think is like maybe real bad, which is not great for the passing game, but Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift are the top running backs on this team. Real exciting about that duo, especially Jones, who seems like actually good versus like just how bad AJ Dillon's been, man. And so like this team can carry Jones if he's out a couple weeks.
What happened to Guy? Like he used to actually be pretty good. I don't understand. The guy sucks now.
I don't know, man. Charbonnet and Tank, which are not doing anything right now, but are perfectly fine because both are at least mixing in. They're rookies. They're going to get more workload as the season goes. And either of them could be Jerome Ford at any given week if something happens to Ken Walker or ETN. One of the few teams, maybe my only team in BBM4 that has Kyron and Jerome Ford. So this team legitimately is going to be in the mix for the regular season prize when you hit on 2 maybe league winners. Kyron or Jerome Ford, more of a league winner to you between those two?
I think Jerome Ford. Just because I think that's a team that actually does want to run through the running back. And I have more.
I would go Kyron for the pass game.
I think that Kyron, I still think Kyron sucks at running. I don't know if it matters to the Rams, but I do think that he legitimately sucks running. Even in his big week, he was dead last in rush yards over expectation per attempt this week. I see him as a little bit more fragile, and I'm not bought in that the pass catching is going to stick on this team given the history you have there. Ford, I'm big time Ford Bowl right now. And a lot of that is just like watching the game, being like, this dude looks sick. But he was an interesting prospect. He has the size. They have the running O-line. Watson, had you asked me before the season, I would have been like, maybe they lose Chubb and they just decide Watson's so, now if this is our sign, we're turning it over to Watson. He's going to throw 40 times a game. I don't think they can do that. So I think Ford is like, I think he's a top 12 running back the rest of the season, honestly.
I like Ford too. He is going to be a poor man's Nick Chubb. Kyron's going to catch a lot more balls though, man. And that does a lot in fantasy to me. It's like, why are
catch a similar amount of balls?
I don't. I think Kyron.
I don't trust this Kyron pass game usage. Like the Stafford Rams have like the lowest pass rate.
That's why I drafted him. No, I think he's going to get like wheel routes, like even like down the field a little bit. Like that's going to be Kyron. Wide receiver, not the strongest group, but this talks to something I've talked to before about capturing a high floor. And by drafting Calvin, Kirk, and Zay, that captures a really high floor ceiling combo where realistically this team needs Tyreek Hill every week, feasible. It needs one of the Jags pass catchers, so Ridley, Kirk, or Zay. It'll probably be Ridley most weeks. And then it really only needs one other guy because we're going to be starting running backs in the flex more often than not. So one of those guys could be Kirk, Zay, DJ Chark, DPJ, Claypool, and Shakir. Shakir looking like a pretty big zero. Claypool, I don't know. We'll see what happened to Mooney. He was looking zero-ish. Better days ahead for Chark and DPJ, maybe. And then Engram and Kincaid, the 2 tight ends, correlate with the quarterback. So exciting team. Like, can it win the total overall prize? Maybe, if Jerome Ford and Kyron are the guys you need. And the wide receiver crew, I get enough. It's kind of hard to say it will be with Chark, DPJ, Claypool, and Shakir, but let's move on to your next team here, Jacob. You didn't even give me the point total on this one.
Oh, the first one was 289.
What is this one, though?
Oh, this one, it's, I think, like 279, 278, something like that.
All right, take it away. Read out the squad for the people.
Well, we have another team that's looking primed to sneak through an ACL running back, so that brings me joy. This one, we got a Patrick Mahomes team. This is also, I believe, drafted really late. Patrick Mahomes team with Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the double Chiefs running back, and Kadarius Toney. And then we've got Kirk Cousins stacked up with Justin Jefferson and the Luke Musgrave bring back. And then filling that out, we have Breece
And
Hall.
Addison.
Oh, and Addison. Jefferson and Addison and Musgrave. And then filling that out, we got Breece Hall, Isaiah Pacheco, Raheem Mostert, Rashad Penny, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Josh Kelly. And then Jefferson against Ayuk, Addison, Toney, Mims, Curtis Samuel, Darius Slayton, and then the Kittle Musgrave. So once again, it looks like we're carrying a nice low advance rate tight end into the leagues.
Well, I mean, this is a really fun. Like Kittle and Musgrave are fun from a ceiling perspective in a given week, where we've not seen it yet from either of them, but I know it's there on a weekly perspective. Their floor is not great. The QB combo could like draw in live to be the nuts, Cousins, and anyone. Really strong at wideout here. Maybe a little like, I don't know if I would have added a Slayton when you have the quality of Jefferson, Higgins, Ayuk, Addison, and then other three guys. But hard to say where you would add that extra dart, maybe tight end or running.
Yeah, I think it was just if I'm guessing, and I'm like, I mean, I can't remember like what my mindset was when I drafted this team, but I'm presuming I just looked at it and was like, Ayuk's going to be a spike week guy. Like he's not like a in your lineup every week guy. Addison's a rookie. Toney is Kadarius Toney. Marvin Mims is a rookie. Like I think I probably looked at it. We need some like guys who are going to run routes with the last two, and Curtis Samuel and Darius Slayton is, I'm assuming, what I was thinking, but we'll see. Plus, at this point, like this was, I believe, a late drafted team, so I'm pretty sure I already knew that Raheem Mostert was going to be a fast starter to kind of cover the brief weeks. So I'm pretty sure this is like one where I wasn't that worried about the early season running back production with the two Chiefs and Mostert.
Not the best running back room, but once Breece comes along, should be fine. And you got Kelly, who could also be in the league winner discussion. Moving on to my second team here. This is an unstacked team mostly, other than Stafford to Kyron. And so it's a Love, Stafford, CJ Stroud team. Zach Charbonnet, Mostert, Jamal Williams, Jerick McKinnon, Kyron Williams, Josh Kelly, Sean Tucker. So a zero running back room here with Mostert, a guy who I didn't get on really until late because I was just drafting so much Jeff Wilson. Unfortunate there. So he's like one of the few guys I'm like, wish I had more.
Consider that Jeff Wilson could be the guy you need.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he legit could. He could do exactly what Moss did, like broke his arm and come back. It's exciting that it has Kyron and Kelly. Moving on to
super exciting.
The really exciting thing about this team is it has Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. So like the possibility of this team being the regular season point champion would be literally just like alternating weeks of Andrew and Hawkinson, like scoring 2 touchdowns, and like you need that combo. My mistake, guys. I meant to pull up the leaderboard at the start of the show here just to show you where we are at on this. The top team is absurd right now, of course. It won't hold up this pace, but it is a 346 points by Turn Me Up. Absolute lit name.
Turned up.
346 is an average of 175, nearly 173 the first 2 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, the wideouts, Tyreek, Olave, Mike Williams, Judy, Flowers. So 5 wide receivers who are good. Bateman, I think, will come on. What?
Oh, this isn't your team. I thought this was the 346.
No. This is
sorry. This is back to your team.
Yeah, back to
I was like, 346 doesn't have Puka?
No, we can't see that team.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, exciting room. It's got the running back points. It's got the, like, this is how I draft a lot of teams where, like, I draft quality at wideout and I stop, where, like, sometimes you're going to land on Kyron and Josh Kelly. Sometimes you're going to land on Sean Tucker, who, like, Sean Tucker, I'm leaving the light on.
I am very much leaving the light on for Sean Tucker. I'm not convinced at all that Rachaad White accumulating fantasy points against the worst defense in the league means that he's good. He's not. He sucks. I still feel like great about Sean Tucker. I mean, I don't feel great about Sean Tucker. He also might suck. I feel good that Rachaad White is going to provide an opportunity for Sean Tucker to see if he sucks.
Yeah, and the thesis for drafting him is the same for Kyron, where it's like was not drafted at 100% clip. Makes it easier on yourself to win when you target those players. So obviously this was a late August team for me. But yeah, really fun that it just has 2 elite tight ends. They both have a week 13 bye, something I don't give a fuck about when they're 2 elite tight ends. A lot of people are like, can't draft Darren Waller and TJ Hawkinson. Can't draft Mark Andrews and Darren Waller because they both have week 13 buys. Free yourself. Take that 0 that week. This combo is going to lap the other teams at tight end. Let's get to your third and final team here, Jacob.
All right, this one is probably dead because J.K. Dobbins is the RB1. But I actually looked to see if I would be like, what if I just pick my 4th highest scoring team instead? But my 4th and 5th highest scoring teams also have J.K. Dobbins because he was tied with Nico Collins for most drafted players. So of my 2 most drafted players, one looks like probably one of the 5 biggest league winners available, and one looks like he's going to score 11 points that he scored in week 1 and not anymore for the rest of the year. So yeah, this one is a Geno and Russ Wilson team. Looks like Geno with Tyler Lockett, Russ Wilson with Jerry Jeudy, and I can't see probably Dulcich's on this team, but I can't see if I'm just guessing. Actually not. I'm probably really annoyed about that at the time. This team is probably dead because it has J.K. Dobbins, it has Garrett Wilson, so probably don't need to spend that much time talking about it.
It has Russell Wilson.
This is basically just DeAndre Swift, Raheem Mostert, and Kyren Williams holding this up the trench coat and trying to,
which could be enough, man, with the wide receivers. Honestly, like you tweeted out you only drafted 5% Kyren, but I'm seeing him on your top teams here. Team definitely has the wide receiver firepower with Adams and Keenan, especially Garrett Wilson, RIP a little bit. Tight end room, perfectly fine. The running back room with Swift, Mostert, and Kyren leading the way, that could be enough if they stay healthy. It's a little hard to see though.
We'll see. It's definitely not one that I'm sure I could scroll down and find 5 that are in 3rd place right now that I probably have higher hopes for than this J.K. Dobbins RB1 squad.
Yeah, my 3rd team is also a J.K. Dobbins team. My 4th team is my only Bijan Diggs team, but we'll see that one in future weeks maybe. So this one's exciting because it's Hurts and Daniel Jones, RIP J.K. Dobbins, but CMC, James Cook, and Kyren could be enough at running back with P. Ryan giving me whatever. CMC and Cook especially seem like they have high floors, and Kyren. Wide receiver, nothing really special here other than Smith to stack with Hurts, Hyatt and Slayton and Campbell to stack with Daniel Jones. Ayuk is in there, Bateman's in there, Sutton's in there, Mingo, DPJ, Hawkinson and Higbee. So really stacked up that Rams-Giants game week 17. Any team with CMC, Hurts, Smith is going to be live. It's not my favorite team, but we'll see. It needs Hawkinson to do well too. If Hawkinson and CMC and Hurts have good seasons and I get enough from wide out, it could cook with something.
Yeah. Man, I know I'm seeing people in the chat tilting it, and I can't even just go there in my mind because every time I start to think about the J.K. Dobbins 79% snap rate, 20% target share first half, and reimagine this season in which he's part of my portfolio. I just cry. So I can't
and that's part of fantasy, man. Some years you're going to draft Nick Chubb, some years you're going to draft Tony Pollard, some years you're going to draft J.K. Dobbins, some years you're going to draft DeAndre Swift, you could feel great about all these guys, and half of them could tear their ACL next week. That's best ball.
Yep.
Looking at the community teams, I'll take the first one here. We got posted the 3rd highest scoring team in the whole contest. He said, 3rd place team, and I don't even love the team. It's a Tua Cousins team.
Not Dobbins.
It's got Henry, who I don't like. I think Henry's a mirage. J.K. Dobbins, RIP. Mostert, legit. Algier, legit. Gainwell, we'll see what happens to Gainwell. I still think he'll mix in. Ty Chandler is fine. It's got Tyreek, Higgins, Ayuk, Pickens. Those 4 have really done a lot of work. Sutton, Romeo Dobbs, and Jaden Reed getting 2 touchdowns each from those guys.
Great about Reed.
Yeah, Hart. Well, the only thing about the Packers is they're running crazy efficient, but Hawkinson and Schultz. So cool, we saw that team. Jacob, walk us through this submission from Hillo, one member of the fantasy community, if you can read it here.
Zoom in a touch here for us.
Yeah, it's a little bit
never
weird
mind.
on
Okay, all right, that's
Twitter.
good enough. I can see it from there.
Here we go.
Okay, so we got Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. That's really fun. The triple window quarterback. I really like that. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Josh Kelly. Yeah, I mean, probably two guys there that I think are like probably two of the half dozen most important running backs to have rostered right now, and certainly some other guys have upside. Amon-Ra, that's hopefully he's healthy. Adams, Cooper, Judy, Mike Evans, Rashid Shaheed, and Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, like I think he might only made 2 catches, but he was so impressive on both.
He's like Mims. Yeah.
Like I don't know how. I mean, the Giants receiving core is so bad. I don't know how they don't come out of that game and say like adjustment number 1 is more routes for Jalen Hyatt. Like I'm not even a Jalen Hyatt guy, so this is not me truthering. I was pretty out on him as a prospect.
I was out on him until late.
Really impressive.
I
took him a lot late when he was like cheap. Well, actually, I took him a little bit. I took him a lot when he was falling, and then when he came back up, then I didn't take him anymore. I took him like in the kind of the middle range.
Yeah, I don't have like a
price on him, but I also then don't have him with Kyron Williams because I was hammering Kyron.
I don't know, man. Like the Giants could just be like very bad. Like unfortunately.
Taysom, Conklin, and Hunter Henry. We didn't even talk about Hunter Henry, but he's the number 2 tight end in fantasy, so you got to feel good about any Hunter Henry team.
Yeah, I think Hunter Henry has had 2+ matchups. Well, like the Patriots' next 3 games are like Jets, Cowboys, and Saints. Like, let's talk back about the Patriots after that three game stretch. Last team,
I think fair enough, but at the same time, like to me, if you had told me that Hunter Henry, like that the Patriots were willing to play 82 tight end routes out of 47 dropbacks and like just fully embrace the 12 personnel, then I would have drafted Hunter Henry. Like I drafted a lot of them as it was, but I would have like 40% because he's a legitimate target earner. They're not trusting their rookies right now. He's probably the best receiver on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, again, I think the Patriots stuff is a little bit of a mirage. Not a great team. I think a lot of teams are playing 12 this year as a counter to cover 2. So I don't think the Patriots are that unique in that way. Mike Gesicki is getting
not unique, but I just mean it means that Henry's route participation is locked in.
Yeah, I mean Henry, he's gonna be a fine tight end. He's gonna be in the mix for tight end 1. Targets of like 5 and 6 back-to-back weeks. They got gifted an extra possession against the Eagles with the pick 6. I think the Dolphins are a plus matchup for tight end, so we'll see on them. And he got two red zone targets, 2 touchdowns. Like that's not.
I don't think he's going to be like a league winner, but I think we're going to see closer to his 2021 season than his 2022 season.
Yeah,
a very useful element of your team.
This team posted by Chris Tan here is a Richardson Howell team. Really fun combo of quarterbacks. We'll see if Howell can hold the job all year. Henry, not stoked on that. James Conner, kind of old. Brian Robinson, Roshan, Chuba Hubbard, Jeff Wilson. Tyreek Ayuk, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Traylon Burks, Nico Collins, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. So stacked it up.
Love that receiver room. Wow, that's fun.
Yeah. And then Andrews and Henry. So totally fine at tight end as well. Pretty fun team for Chris Tan here.
Mark Andrews is a pretty good tight end too.
Jacob, I don't know. Typically at this segment of the show, we would go game by game. I don't know what your schedule.
We do not have time for game by game unless we go very quick. We are an hour 10 in. I've already delayed my next show, but I probably got about 20 to 30 minutes for you. We can go rapid fire.
All right. Well, then I think what we'll do is we'll just run through some tweets I pulled up, and I'll go and I'll run game by game, I guess, by myself, and then we'll say goodbye to you after we go through the tweet portion. A little miscommunication by us there. The show
Fair
goes.
enough. My apologies. I was I got an hour and a half for you. I did not know.
Yeah, no, it's long. I know. Well, when we spend 45 minutes on the top 12 of each position, it's going to go along.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, in hindsight, I wish that I had planned this out better because it would be a blast to do a 3-hour show. So.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? 4 hours? Who knows?
I'm not against it. I'm certainly not against it.
All right, so we're gonna run through some tweets that I did, some tweets Jacob did, some tweets I saw on the community. The first tweet is just strictly the rookie wide receiver report, and
all right.
So this is just some routes, targets, ADOT, any of the rookie wide receivers you want me to touch on. You touched on Marvin Mims, 6 routes. Jalen Hyatt, 12 routes. I think the one that sticks out to me, Nathaniel Dell, 45 routes, 10 targets, 9.2 ADOT, 7 catches, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, compared to Jaden Reed, who, man, like once Christian Watson comes back, 18 routes for Jaden Reed, 2 touchdowns on those. Like that screams unsustainable to me. Can Rashee Rice earn more work, 6 routes? Any of the rookie wide receivers you want touchdown? Puka Nacua, absurd here. 52 routes, 19 targets, 6.42 ADOT, 15 catches. Anything before we move on from this?
Let's just say this. How would you rank 1 through, let's say, 6?
That's a great question.
Rest of the season.
I would go Puka 1. I would go Addison 2. I think you got to give Flowers 3 right now. I would go JSN 4. Then it gets real hard. I mean, I guess I'm going like Dell 5, and it's either Hyatt, Reed, or Mims for 6, and like whatever, I'll decide with my priors and give it to Reed. But I don't know, like maybe you want the higher ADOT guys, like Mims ADOT 46, Hyatt's ADOT 37.5. I mean, even Michael Wilson showed some life last week. Josh Downs showed some life. How's your top 6 look?
1 is Puka. 2 through 4 is really challenging to me. I think I would go Addison just because the Vikings are like such an absolute carnival.
Yeah.
It is. I don't want to be the reactionary guy with JSN because he hasn't really done anything wrong. But I think I would go Flowers 3 right now just because I feel better about the offense and the role. JSN a very close 4. I'm still put Quentin Johnston at 5. I mean, the Chargers are still an offense I'd want to be attached to. I know he's not doing anything right now. It's not like Josh Palmer is playing well. So I still think that like at some point in time, Quentin Johnston's numbers can get called, and we're going to be really excited to have him on teams.
I'm a little worried about how like they'll run against teams they can beat with the run is the one concern about the Chargers.
But they will run a lot of plays regardless. So like even when their run rate is extreme, they're still going to pass at league average rates. And then when in the games that they're pass heavy, I mean, they can push 60 pass attempts. Man, 6 is hard. I guess it's probably Nathaniel Dell, right? I mean, the Texans are like willing to throw.
How could it not,
Their
man?
defense sucks. This was the case I was making for, I remember being on your show and like trying to pump up Collins and at the time Mechie and Schultz, like all the Texans. Didn't really take a lot of Dell, so L on me there. But like the idea that Stroud would be competent, that they bring in this offensive coordinator from PFF. I'm like, I don't think they're going to be as run heavy as people think. They're going to play at a higher pace than people think. And then you add in the idea that Stroud is going to be able to avoid sacks at a reasonable rate and is not going to scramble. So you're just going to have like a bunch of converted dropbacks to targets. And we're seeing that certainly. They're kind of doing the Patriots thing, but maybe even more sustainably. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, how I approach rookie quarterbacks is I just draft all the highly drafted ones. So I got Bryce, I got Stroud, Richardson. I got a lot of because it was different there, but that's how I blindly do it.
Yeah, Stroud and Richardson are both in my top 4 most drafted quarterbacks.
Looking at tight ends, I mean, I think we can already put to bed the poor narrative rookie tight ends can't produce. The Kincaid only being at 60%. This was due to a couple reasons. One, the Bills were up by a ton, so I don't know what the percentages look like later in the game. 2, Kincaid did not play. Like the Bills strangely had the ball at like the 1 yard line 3 times, and he wasn't in on those games, which is like on those downs, which is not great for like his ability to get like a leak out route touchdown. Like Knox can get that. But 6 targets, 5 catches, 43 yards, pretty bullish. Sam Laporta, 6 targets, 5 catches, 63 yards. Luke Musgrave, a down game. He's going to be boom bust with how much that team passes. Luke Schumacher got a touchdown. Michael Mayer is the traditional late round tight end to me, where it's like, if he can do what Trey McBride did towards the end of the season, I think we're excited about it. But I don't know. How you feel about
fuck off with the Austin Hooper shit? Like it's enough already with Austin Hooper. Enough already. Not that Mayer's done anything, I guess, yet to earn more, but I still feel like theoretically
Are you holding the light on for Mayer, or is he dead?
I am. I'm holding the light on for Mayer. Yeah. Strong prospect. I mean, I think slightly overrated prospect, but strong prospect nonetheless. And the other thing too with Mayer is you're far more okay, I think, with him being just a guy who shows up for you late in the season, because you usually were able to draft him in literally the last round. Whereas, Kincaid and Laporta, Musgrave depends if you took him early in the year versus,
Mayer was going right next to Hunter Henry, though. So, like, that's the bar for him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, he's not going to be the best pick of the round, but I just mean, like, your team is probably constructed in a way that's not dependent on, like, Mayer being an every week piece. Whereas if you drafted Kincaid at his price, or Laporta at his, or Musgrave late in the season, like, more likely they're either one of 3 tight ends, where they're probably like the best or the second best, or they're like your clear cut tight end 2 and a 2 tight end bill. I think you're more dependent on a floor from them. Whereas, you might have Mayer like with him, you might have Mayer with Travis Kelce, right? Like, it's so.
Yeah. Talk us through your tweet here, Jacob. We like to pull up a guest tweet each week.
Yeah, this was the tweet that I basically tweeted in hopes that we could talk about it on the show, because you were like, try to tweet something profound, and then nobody really like interacted with it. Whereas when I just tweet like non-profound memes, people
Jacob,
crazy.
Look at that.
Thanks, Liam. Yeah. Meanwhile, you post like a nobody's talking about blank, and you get 400 likes. But anyway, this would be my takeaway. I think all of these players, like Nico, Brian Robinson, Zay Flowers, Kyron Williams, certainly more of them than just these guys. But they all strike me as players who were young players, year 2, year 3, year 1 players, who people decided like, they don't really have a ceiling. We can't push them up, right? I had this discussion about Nico numerous times, where it was like, once he got into this certain range, they're like, no, we're not pushing him all the way up. Like, he's not really a window wide receiver in the way that a Bateman is, or Burks is, whatever. Brian Robinson, of course, we just talked about, like, he's not athletic. He doesn't catch passes. He's in a split. Zay Flowers is kind of viewed as like a low ceiling rookie prospect, because he was smaller and he was older and he was not, in his past happy offense.
I think it was like the offensive concern was Zay a little bit, but then we saw the training camp clips with Brian Robinson. Right. It's like,
but even in dynasty for Flowers, and even the dynasty conversation around him was always like, yeah, he's a high floor, low ceiling guy. Like, he's small. He played 4 years of college. Like, maybe that. And Kyron was, I think, like, again, like, correctly in terms of what the base case scenario was like, he's just going to be a satellite back. To be clear, like, I believed this for at least 2 of these players. Like, I was like right around the market on Brian Robinson. I thought he was a high, median player with a pretty limited ceiling who only fit certain teams. Kyron Williams, I was like, oh, I'll draft him because he's going to play snaps and he's in round 18 and he's undrafted. And like, I'm certainly above the field expectation. But I mean,
Robinson's running hot though, right? Like, I like Robinson. He got like long touchdown against the Broncos. He played the Cardinals. Like, let's see
he is running hot, but he like just looks better to me this year. Like, he is. He was always kind of the more sound running back of the 2. But he actually has juice at this point, and he has looked completely capable of catching the ball out of the backfield. Like, I think it's totally within the realm of possibilities. They just look at these games and they're like, what exactly does Antonio Gibson do here? And just like,
Gibson could be off the team by the trade deadline.
80% snap rate moving forward. Like, I think that's in the cards. So that's probably one thing. I think next year, it's one thing to be like Juju Smith-Schuster doesn't have a ceiling, right?
Yeah.
But I think we should probably be like a little bit more vigilant when we're talking about really young guys in somewhat ambiguous situations. Like, Sky Moore has a ceiling. Nico Collins does not have a ceiling.
How high would you have chased Nico up?
I thought that where I had him ranked in like in a vacuum ranks, I thought he should have gone ahead of Cortland Sutton and Michael Thomas in that like kind of round 8 range behind Elijah.
That's like 8, 9.
Yeah. Like, I thought he was like better than all of the non-window receivers, but like a slightly worse profile than the Bateman Burks group, which like still would have been too low.
I just don't draft a lot of wide receiver in that range any year, because it's like, usually I'm hitting the top guys.
I don't either.
Need running backs
I don't either. Like, I remember even in a post, I was like, he's now going in a range where I don't draft wide receiver. My take is that he's just simply like, my take is that he should be an 8th round pick. You can draft in the 11th. So just take a better version of your 11th round pick in the 8th and then make your 8th round pick in the 11th.
Yeah. All right. Real quick on this one before we run to more profound tweets. Potential to confirm late round league winners in best ball land this year. I put Puka, Kyron, Tutu, Jerome Ford, Josh Kelly. Which ones are you buying? Which ones are you selling as league winners?
Puka
Ford, you're buying clearly.
Puka league winner. Kyron, I'm buying as like a league winner. Like I'm maybe a little lower on him than you, but I'm still buying that he's going to be a high-end RB2 rest of season that you drafted in the 18th round. That's a league winner.
Yeah.
Selling league winner Tutu. I think he's like going to be very useful player Tutu.
Atwell or Mingo,
like
more points rest of season.
Probably taking Atwell.
Atwell or Bateman, more points.
I'm probably going to say Atwell with that specific question, but I would still rather have Bateman.
That's called take locked. No, I'm kidding. I don't know, man. Like you're talking about an 18th round pick who was drafted in like 5% of draft.
Pick.
Like,
yeah, I'm going to say like league. I'm going to say he's a league impactor.
League. Okay.
Like my bar for league winner is really high. Like how many names are league winners at the end of the year? How many like?
I mean, we so rarely get the Puka.
Sure. Like if I'm saying that there's 10 league winners at the end of the year, I don't think Tutu's on the list. If you want to say there's 30, then I think Tutu's on the list.
Fair. Kelly, what's your thought? I mean, like it really depends what happens to Eckler.
I mean, possible league winner, but I'm still pretty not sold that he's good. And I mean, I still think Eckler probably. I think most likely scenarios, Eckler comes back in like 3 weeks, and Kelly does what like Benjamin did last year, which is like have a few starts, one good one, one bad one, one mediocre one, and
he had his bad one. He gets the Vikings this week. That's his good one.
This is his Thursday night against the Saints. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. This is from Ryan Heath of Fantasy Points. This is we looked at this last week. It's their on the x-axis or on the y-axis we got air yard share. On the x-axis we got we read target share. And so you see basically like the studs of the NFL in the upper right here with guys like Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Puka Nacua. For the guys with bad box scores like AJ Brown, it speaks to how better days are ahead. What's sticking out from you from this chart? I'm going to open this image so that we can zoom on it. What sticks out to you from this chart? I mean, I don't know, like Marquise Brown, man, does he have life? 10 targets? I don't know. What's sticking out to you?
Yeah, Marquise Brown has life. I mean, he's a guy. His ceiling is fully reliant on Kyler coming back and being good. Because otherwise he's just gonna, interchange like 18 points is his reasonable ceiling in this offense.
Mingo, man.
Garrett Wilson stands out as making me sad in that what could have been. T. Higgins,
Zach Ertz.
Impressing you? You still hate T. Higgins? Yeah, Zach Ertz. That needs to stop, man. I'm like upset about the Zach Ertz usage. Like come on, like what are the Cardinals doing? Like they have the worst in the league.
Absurd.
And they're just
it's because Josh Dobbs, like I know who Zach Ertz is. Like that's it.
It's like legitimately one of the most absurd things this entire season is that the Cardinals, who are going to go like 1-16, are just like choosing to run their offense through Zach Ertz. It's unconscionable behavior from them. And it's really
around guys like Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin.
I thought Ertz having a higher ADP than McBride was one of the stupidest things the fantasy community ever did, and I've been owned. He was a great pick.
Yeah, fair. All right, moving on. This is another chart by Ryan, and this is about running backs. So it's about who are the shifty running backs. And on this axis, we got yards from scrimmage per touch. So that's efficiency. And then this axis is missed tackles forced per touch. So the good running backs we see, I mean, Chuba Hubbard is pretty productive here.
Yeah.
Bijan, obviously off the charts. Eckler, a lot of yards per scrimmage. Not a ton of missed forced tackles against the Dolphins. James Cook stands out here. Mostert, Gibbs, Moss, kind of shockingly.
He was good. He always forces missed tackles. Like Zach Moss is I had to name a whole bit after him, the Zach Moss corollary, because he's so good at forcing missed tackles. Yeah, this is. I mean, forced missed tackle is probably not my favorite of all of the running back advanced metrics for reasons I don't have time to go into. But impressive to see like Roschon looking really good. I thought he's been a standout just from watching him, and he'd be a guy that I'd be really excited to have on teams. I'm certainly not like declaring Herbert dead the way maybe some people in the industry are. He still has the majority of the snaps, but loving what I'm seeing from Roschon, and you see Herbert also right there. I mean, Bears have a good backfield, guys. They just got to figure out what the hell they're
Not a
doing
lot
with
of
it.
slice of the pie to the running backs, though.
No, not a lot of slice of the pie.
Moving forward, we got some charts from Hayden Winks, or this is actually just a tweet. So this was yards before contact per carry. And he said this is largely an O-line and QB stat. So basically,
well, I strongly disagree with that, but yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get to that if we have time.
Yeah.
So basically he's saying Gus Edwards, Swift, Eckler, Mostert, Pacheco are guys who, I understand your point where it's like avoiding contact is like a skill, but a lot of these guys run between the tackles. So it's like making contact with the defender you do every play regardless. I guess the quarterback stat he's saying because like Hurts pulls coverage. And then the guys who are not getting a lot of help, Pierce, Jacobs, and Akers. Better days ahead for Jacobs, who's like usage is elite. Pierce needs his O-line to get healthy.
He needs to not be down 3 touchdowns by the third quarter of the game.
Yeah. Anything you want to touch on this? This is not sustainable, Edwards.
No, it's certainly not. I mean, we're talking about small sample size with everything, right? So, Gus Edwards had one run this week where he ran like 30 yards without being touched, and that changes your entire sample size when we're talking about like 20 carries, right? So, all data has to be, taken with a grain of salt at this point. It's even when I'm writing my running back articles each week, like I'm watching way more of the games than I probably will in week 11, just because I consider the data to be very unreliable right now.
Yeah.
I think that the yards before contact stuff is both. Like it is a quarterback stat and it is a scheme stat. And certainly it's not the running back owns it all. I think if you have a really, really low yards before contact, like that's clearly a sign your offensive line and your scheme is not working to your strengths. But I do think that it is a legitimate skill. And we have seen players in the same offensive environment, one having a substantially higher yards before contact than the other, even on similar usage. I mean, Swift, some of his forced missed tackles are him pressing up to the line, seeing a defender, and then juking them out of their shorts because that's something that he can do. So he's never contacted, but that's not like that was his blocked yards. It's, whereas other people, like David Montgomery can't do that, right? He has to run that defender over. So he's going to get then credited for yards after contact while just getting the yards before contact, which people don't like to give credit for. But then if you start to look at forced missed tackles, or if you start to look at more holistic stats like RYOE, you start to see that getting brought in together, or you can watch the tape. But I think yards before contact is a mix. It's partially quarterbacks, partially schemes, partially lock. But I do think that the running back owns it a little bit.
This chart by Hayden is wide receiver fantasy usage by team, expected fantasy points. Dolphins, Rams, Texans, Chargers kicking it off at the top. We see surprise guys like the Patriots up there. Bengals being high is hopeful for them with Burrow getting better. Jags up here, no surprise. The Saints being up here is like, some of this is small sample, like they got to play the Titans, but they passed against the Panthers too. Some teams that are a little low is the Bills. However, keep in mind, like the Bills are really only running 2 wide receivers each week compared to some teams running 3.
Yeah,
but
part of their wide receiver usage is at tight end every week.
Yeah, so that's why it's like Diggs and Davis are pretty much just splitting this up for the Bills. The Chiefs, not the highest at 31, especially for Kansas City missing. Anything sticking out on this chart to you?
I mean,
and if we gotta say goodbye to you, Jacob, I can finish this show.
I'll have to go in a sec. But yeah, seeing the Raiders this low is surprising considering just how concentrated they've been to Adams and Myers. But I guess part of that was just this week when Myers was not part of the mix. I think that'll probably go up. It speaks
to just how bad the team, like they ran 39 plays against Buffalo.
Actually, that's like
the lowest in a long time.
The Devontae Adams faders were like right and also wrong. It's like
that's right, to choose your side right now. But I was a fader.
And if you're a fader, you can point to that and you can be like, the Raiders are a disaster. They ran 39 plays. And I can be like, and he still got 20 points because he's sick as hell.
Without Myers, though. Without Myers.
I don't really, it's too big of a deal.
The Eagles being this low is a little surprising. Jacob, should we say goodbye to you before?
Unfortunately, we do. Also, cool to see the Colts in the middle of the pack. Like, who would have expected that going into the season? It's pretty cool. So shout out to Colts. Texans,
yeah, and like, you know, the difference between the Colts
the
and the Vikings at like 31 is not that much on the chart. But we'll take a break from these charts to say goodbye to Jacob. Jacob, anything you want to tell the people before you get out of here? Don't go anywhere, guys. I will lock down the rest of this show, running through the rest of this tweet.
Thanks for having me on. At some point in time, me, you, and Ron will have to, like, if we ever get another big waiver discussion and we're actually able to arrange step on a call, we'll have to do it and stream it for 20 minutes or something, because we gotta
to give the guys
are pretty fucking live in this.
Yeah,
thing,
to give the chat a little behind the scenes, it's like it was a war zone last week. I mean, last week was a stressful waiver run where it's like I really
eventually all consolidated on the Puka thing. Like, that became non-contentious. The Tutu thing remained contentious.
I wanted Tutu. They did not want Tutu. They weren't respecting the Tutu. I noticed they got Tutu on some other teams, though. So really, did they not just want me to have Tutu?
No, this was the funniest thing. And so I had a universal bid on Tutu at $52. And then Liam wanted to bid like $102, I think, on Tutu, or maybe even more than that.
I think I was at like 150 on Tutu or something.
And so I like capitulated, and I was like, a little bit. I was like, okay, we'll do 72. So I went $20 above what I bid in every other league. And I got Tutu on 70% of my $52 bid. So we did not get him on the $72 bid. So, which I just thought was really funny because Liam had been like badgering us into Tutu all day. I was like, no, my bid that I want to do, like, probably had like a 70% chance of being good enough anyways. And then we still don't wind up on Tutu on this team. So then I texted our chat, isn't it going to be really funny when I win a massive tournament with Tutu and we don't win because we wouldn't get a
and I said, ha ha ha, so funny,
Jacob. In all caps, so funny, like he was a serial killer. And
no, I mean, I think it was sharp to adjust our priors very quickly to the Rams, who were both very good and very condensed. And that's why, like, yes, Puka was the crown jewel, but like Tutu's not going away to me unless he is hurt, you know? So that's why I wanted in on him. But Jacob, man, tell the people you could follow Jacob at his @ here. You see him. He's got a Substack where he does a lot of great work. Tell the people
my name.substack.com. It's called Thing with Thing, but it's just jakobsanderson.substack.com. Yeah, you can find, I do minimum 2 columns every week. I do what I'm calling Sunday Drive, which is I just go over some of the biggest shifts to the running back landscape, either with usage or especially with injuries. So I wrote today about Kyron, about Jerome Ford, about the Detroit Lions injuries that we didn't even get a chance to touch on, the new Baltimore Ravens backfield, some stuff like that. And then on Friday morning, I will have my Spotlight column where I'll pick a few different backfields that I go in depth, blending some film, blending some stats. We're going to talk about the Commanders and Brian Robinson. We're going to talk about Liam's boy, James Cook, this week, whether I'm willing to capitulate to big James Cook. I think I might be. And then usually, probably like every second or third Saturday, I'll have like a dynasty-focused theory column out. So maybe that'll be this week, maybe it'll be next week. But yeah, check it all out on Thinking About Thinking.
And Jacob, before we say goodbye, we will give you a good vibe flute.
Love that.
You can leave at any time. I just like to do that occasionally. I made this in college. Pretty cool.
That's like the best. That's the best I've ever been let off of a podcast. I have great
it's pretty nice, man. The flute of destiny. How much did Puka go for? You don't need to wait for this, Jacob. Yeah. So in the one league I drafted Cup in, I did not get him for like a $935 bid. Some guy got him for $936. RIP me. I got Puka in every other league he was available, which is 3 of them.
God bless everybody. Thanks for the flute.
Goodbye, Jacob. All right, guys, you don't need to go anywhere because I will hold down the rest of the show. I don't think I'm going to end up going game by game with the Fantasy Life data just by myself here, but I will run through the rest of these tweets, answer any questions you guys have in the chat, and get to a look ahead at week 3. If you're not already, please hit the subscribe button. I'm on the road to 5K subscribers, along with the Tuesday Best Ball Mania 4 Leaderboard show, which you're watching now. Friday, going to do a pick'em show and going to do it's kind of like a casual draft show, looking at my exposures and whatnot on Thursdays. Hell yeah, house mix. Atwell, how much did he go for? He went for, I think, like 130. So, like, unfortunately for us in that league, I wanted to bid like, I don't remember what it was, but both of the bids I wanted to do would have gotten us Puka and Tutu, but I couldn't convince them to drop like Mingo or OBJ or Michael Mayer for Tutu. So, but whatever, our team's like loaded on that. Some other tweets I saw. This one is from Hayden on the running back usage. You see the Cowboys leading the pack here at 36. This could be even better if they had some competitive games. They get the Cardinals this week, pretty smash spot. No surprise to see the Falcons at the second best. I think the fantasy community as a whole should have maybe just been more in on drafting Algier. I know a lot of people balked at Bijan's price. To me, I've said many times, I simply do not fade generational prospects. The Bills checking in at 3 here is somewhat of a surprise. However, when you consider they played the Jets, who are more of a run funnel, and they played the Raiders, who they beat the shit out of, not that surprising. I do think it's going to be a little bit frustrating for Buffalo, where it's going to be Cook between the 20s. It's going to be Latavius Murray in some hurry up in like the 2-minute drill, because that is going to be Latavius Murray is just the best pass blocker on the team, point blank period. And James Cook is a small running back. So that's why he's going to be in. And then in short yardage, it's going to be Murray and Damian Harris. So that's not great. The Chargers, or the Rams being up here, I mean, this is wheels up for Kyron is what that means to me. Now, they did get to play the Seahawks, who are like terrible on defense, and then the 49ers. So keep an eye on this one. The Chargers are going to be matchup based. Lions and Eagles and Browns. These are 3 teams with 3 elite O-lines. So not a surprise to see them up here. I mean, the Cowboys at 36 and basically the RB, the second best team is at 26 is just patently absurd. Just shows that Pollard is like undervalued everywhere. Like Pollard is legit, maybe like a $10,000 player in DFS land, not priced like that. In a competitive game environment, like he's getting so much targets. Like, man, Pollard, RB1, so live for that. A surprise to see the 49ers only down here at 18 points. I guess CMC is just being really efficient. Bottom of the barrel here, you got guys like the Chiefs. You got the Jets, kind of surprisingly. My read on the Jets and why I benched Breece Hall in a lot of managed leagues is I think the Jets looked at the Cowboys game and accepted they were going to lose. And they said, you know who we're playing next week? The Patriots. A divisional game. Let's save Breece Hall for that game. So we'll see if they give Breece more workload there. That's a little inside baseball take for me. The Vikings being down here, their O-line sucks, and Alexander Madison's not great. The Jags being down here, I think their O-line's just real bad. Like pretty narrow though for these bottom guys. Next tweet is from TJ Hernandez. Players with at least 40% of the team touches through 2 games. All of these guys are going to be running backs, but CMC, Derrick Henry, I think this number is going to go down over the course of the season. James Conner, can he hold up for the whole season? That is questionable. Josh Jacobs, again, in good matchups, is going to score some points. Joe Mixon in good matchups might score some points, especially without Burrow. Miles Sanders being here, Brian Robinson, and Tony Pollard. The next tweet is from Ian Harditz of Fantasy Life. This is a run. He says, further right, great passing offense. Further up, great run offense. Steelers and Jaguars, yuck. So I wish Jacob was here because I wanted to talk to him about the Jaguars. I mean, I was huge on the Jaguars passing offense, and they have faced the Chiefs, who I think their defense is actually maybe a little underrated when Chris Jones plays. And week 1, they played the Colts, who are just like awful. So I don't know why they're so far down here. I think it's because their O-line is like way worse this year. and Trevor is not doing great under pressure. So I'm a little perplexed how the Jags are so far down here, yet their wide receivers are smashing. So I don't know. Maybe it won't be great for real life, but I still think for fantasy, the Jags are going to get there. Dolphins breaking the chart from a passing efficiency. These teams up here are good at passing and running. So these are teams or I guess these teams right here. 49ers are good at passing and running. Bills, Chargers, Seahawks, Rams, Broncos, Falcons, Ravens coming in as strong in running teams with decent passing offenses. Eagles, Titans, Giants can run the ball but not pass. And then this is the Vikings down here for their run. Not great. The next tweet is from Scott Barrett. Design runs per game in 2023. Hurts 7.5. Daniel Jones 5. Richardson 4.5. Again, Richardson could legit be the QB1. Fields 2.5. It was 6.3 last year. Allen 2.5. It was 4.6 last year. I really think in the short term, Allen's not going to run a lot with the narrative sitting around that Jets game. But he, even with this being at 2.5, he had a crazy goal line attempt last game where he tried to hurdle a guy. Luckily, it was a teammate of his in college, and he did not get blown up on the play where he really could have gotten fucked up. But yeah, I mean, I think Fields' number is going to go up too, just because he's not a legit quarterback, and so it needs to. And these are all exciting numbers for Hurts, Jones, and Richardson, who I think Richardson misses this week with a concussion, but then will return. This next tweet is from Jacob Gibbs, an account I recently found. And it says, when not facing pressure, these have been the most/least accurate quarterbacks according to Fantasy Points data. So the accurate ones, when not facing pressure, are Tua, Josh Allen, Hurts, and Trevor. And again, I'm confused how Trevor's up here, yet on his EPA per pass, he was so far down. So to me, that screams that when he's under pressure, he's being real bad. These quarterbacks are just not good because when they're not pressure, they're not accurate. Derek Carr, Pickett, Watson. Now, this data also could be you're facing tough pass defenses. And in Watson's case, that is maybe true because they played the Bengals in a terrible weather. And then they played the Steelers. With the Steelers, it could be the same thing where they played first the 49ers and then the Browns, two legit defenses. I don't think Derek Carr has a lot of excuses, but no worthy chart there. Also from Jacob Gibbs, the average depth of target when targeting the first read. So Hurts way up there because his first reads are probably Smith and A.J. Brown running down the field. Watson being up there on his first read, kind of noteworthy, maybe an interesting game. If Watson can't get it done against the Titans secondary, no, he's just done. And I didn't draft a lot of him. I think he is closer to done. Lamar being this high, exciting for his pieces. Tua this high, no shock there. Justin Herbert being this high, good news. I still think smart OCs are going to do what the Chargers do. When they can run against a team, they're going to run against them. When they can pass against them, they're going to pass against them. Dak, he notes, is down to a league low 7.7. I don't know what we can learn about the Cowboys destroying the Giants and destroying the Jets. The last tweet is from JJ Zacharyson here. He notes it's a small sample size, but it's how teams are targeting the position and then how that is different from 2022. So at wide receiver, the big changes are Baltimore's targeting wideouts 25% more than last year. Buffalo is targeting the tight end 11% more at the expense of wide receiver. Arizona's targeting the tight end more. The Zach Ertz effect, I guess you could say. Also targeting the wideouts more is Cleveland, Houston, Chargers, the Rams a little bit, the Saints a huge percentage more, Pittsburgh a little bit, and Tennessee and San Fran quite a bit more for wide receiver. Cincinnati a little bit more too. On the negative end, Arizona targeting the wide receiver less, Atlanta targeting the wide receiver less, Buffalo is, Chicago is, Minnesota is a little bit. That's just TJ Hawkinson and running backs, I guess. The Giants are quite a bit. The Eagles are a little bit. And Washington is a little bit. Again, some of it's a small sample. Targeting the tight end a lot more or a lot less is Arizona and Buffalo and Washington on the positive scale. And the Giants, that's Darren Waller. Tampa Bay, I think that's just Baker. Indy, I think that's Richardson a little bit. And Detroit, that's like the Laporta effect. On the negative end, Baltimore, that's missing Mark Andrews. That number should normalize. Las Vegas way down. That's missing Darren Waller. The Rams way down. I think the Rams one is just them like writing Higbee out of the offense. Not great for Higbee. And Pitt way down. We'll see on that one. Tennessee way down as well. Targeting the running back a lot more this year. Atlanta, that's Bijan / just their offense. Buffalo a little bit. I'm surprised the number's not more, but like Singletary did get a lot of targets last year. Carolina a lot more. That's just the Bryce Young effect. Chicago a lot more. Chicago's got to figure shit out. Dallas and Denver a lot more. Great sign for Pollard, Javonte, and P. Ryan in my mind, although I didn't really draft the Broncos guys. Las Vegas way more. That's game script stuff. Minnesota a little bit more. Game script. Jets a little bit more. That's like losing Aaron Rodgers, I guess. Philly a lot more. That's DeAndre Swift to me. Pittsburgh a lot more. That's Jaylen Warren to me. And Tennessee a little bit more. That's Tajay Spears to me. So that closes out our tweets of the week. Got about 150 of you in the chat right now. I saw some questions earlier in the chat. If you have questions I didn't get to later, now's a great time to ask them before I run real quick through. Again, I don't know if I'm going to do this. I was going to go game by game, kind of like I did with Justin, but I think week one's most essential to do that. We'll do it with the guest next week. Did this discuss Cam Akers? Man, I guess I'll just like talk about the NFL and how I see some of this stuff going. Akers, man, is either dead or is going to get traded to a team, but like looking so dead. The other guys looking dead are this is a Best Ball Mania show, Get Shrek, so we're not going to look at Drafters or DraftKings team or Puppy teams. Cam Akers looking dead. Alexander Madison looking pretty dead. Like a bunch of running backs. Dameon Pierce looking pretty dead. Pierce, I actually did draft some. Madison and Akers, not a lot of. Saquon missing games. Going to be real interested. Like Eric Gray's the guy I drafted the most of because he was drafted there, and I don't have evidence of him being bad. So I'm holding out hope for him. If he's inactive, that's not great. Matt Breida is the chalk to be the RB2 there. I think Gary Brightwell's in the mix as well. Montgomery going to miss some time. Come on, Gibbs. What do you got? They signed Zonovan Knight. Kind of interesting there. Can Pittman be a top 15 rest of season? I don't think so, man, because he'd need to run like real hot on touchdowns. You know, like, I don't know, like just listing some guys off for a top 15 list. Diggs, like let's assume Jamar Chase gets up there. Jefferson, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Calvin Ridley. You know, like I think I would take like Kirk over Pittman, maybe even. So Richardson either needs to be like a way better passer than I think he can be, or their schedule's pretty easy, which is helpful for him. But I think he can be around top 15. Still not a guy I'd be like pumped and managed for. But like, yeah, I think like the thing you guys should understand about teams and how they're doing right now is like we've not felt the impact of Saquon missing games, Eckler missing games. Wide receiver is a lot more volatile than running back, where, you know, like Diggs has had a good, not great start. AJ Brown has had a bad start. Like that will normalize. A lot of that shit will normalize. Evans has had a really hot start. I don't think that will stay. Keenan Allen, I think, is here to stay. The 49ers guys are just going to like alternate weeks where they're good. Tyreek is going to continue to be good. Waddle, I think, will be a little bit more boomer bust just with how dominant Tyreek is. Yeah, that's that on the wide receivers. If you have positive advance rates, negative advance rates, keep in mind an average advance rate is 2 divided by 12 or 16.666%. Historically, I have not had great advance rates. I mean, I've not had like terrible advance rates. It's like been just perfectly average, which I frankly haven't really drafted to advanced ever. I'm just trying to build team. Like if you're advancing chalky teams compared to like a Jamar Chase team, you could advance. Like that's like really strong. I'm advancing 35 out of 150 right now in BBM, and I think that number is honestly going to balloon because I'm advancing 23% right now. I think I'm going to advance really, really strong this year due to me having a lot of Kyron, having a lot of Pollard, obviously health permitting and all these things. Like, I don't think we've felt the impact of how good Pollard is in fantasy football yet. You saw that running back usage report by Hayden Winks of the Cowboys running back slice of the pie. Absolutely humongous. Like Tony Pollard drawing live for 40 points against the Cardinals. If it doesn't go to their defense and whatnot, they need to be in some competitive games. Him getting like 7 targets or something. CD Lamb, exciting too, just because he's competing with like scrubs for targets. Brandon Cooks will come back. We'll see what that does. I would be way more excited about CD Lamb than Devontae Adams just due to how good the Cowboys look. I do think a lot of the touchdowns will go on the ground, but CD Lamb, man, is just going to do great. Jason will still finish higher than Puka. I mean, for my bags, that would be nice. I don't think Jason's not done anything like world-beatingly disappointing, but it's hard to deny that other rookie wide receivers are off to a way hotter start. You're at 31% advance rate in BBM, but very low Kyron, Puka, and Ford ownership. Like, yeah, like your advance rate, you're feeling great about it right now. And maybe you have some guys, but like if you have a lot of Saquon, if you have a lot of Eckler, if you had a lot of Chubb, which is unlikely to have a strong advance rate. If you had a lot of like Mike Evans, who I think is a lot more fragile depending on their schedule. Like he's a schedule permitted guy to me. Like your advance rate is going to drop off because now the good news for people who did not draft a lot of Kyron, did not draft a lot of Jerome Ford, especially with Kyron, is Kyron was only drafted in 20% of BBM4 drafts. We're waiting on Hayden Winks for the full report. Keep on tweeting at him. It's working, guys. He tweeted at me today saying that it's coming soon. I need Liam to squirm a little bit more, but like it's week 3. We need that shit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Hayden releases the report of how many times a player was drafted in BBM4. This is how I found out I was one of 3 Jeff Wilson team, or not Jeff Wilson, Jeff Driscoll teams last year. Who are you higher on rest of season? Kadarius Toney or Devon Achane? Man, Jace, I mean, a lot of the shit is it depends. Like, gun to my head, I'd probably choose Toney, but if Mostert gets hurt, Devon Achane maybe league winner. Like if Toney runs a full complement of routes, maybe league winner. So, London dropped 15 last week. Yeah, 15's not great, man. Like, I would still be very down on London, who I don't know, he'll have targets some weeks, but he'll very rarely have a 2 touchdown game. London's like TJ Hawkinson, but he's wide receiver eligible, which is like not great. The good news Brock is saying is that Tampa plays the AFC South along with their own division. Yeah, maybe. I mean, let's check out the Bucs schedule. Okay, Eagles, great matchup for Mike Evans. Saints, terrible matchup. Lions, I think this was a bad matchup. However, they just lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, so that's not great for them. So maybe a plus matchup, unsure. Falcons, bad matchup. Bills, terrible matchup. Texans, okay matchup. I think they're more of a run funnel. Titans, great matchup. 49ers, terrible matchup. Colts, great matchup. Panthers, bad matchup. Falcons, bad. Packers bad. Jags bad. Saints bad. So like I don't know, like, there's a lot of great and a lot of bad there. B-Rob bags looking nice. Yeah, like I would try, like when you think about how you're doing from an advance rate lens right now, which, again, this is obvious, but if you drafted 150 teams and you only advanced one of them and that team won the tournament, that's a lot better than advancing 40% of your teams and they all lose in the first round of the playoffs. And a lot of people ask me, like, how do I judge how I'm doing in best ball land? It's hard, honestly, because like I advanced 23 out of 150 the year I won BBM2, I think it was. So 23 out of 150 is a 15% advance rate, aka 25 out of 150 would have been normal advance rate. So I was negative advance rate that year. Now, the past 2 years, I've had some massive zeros in my bags. I've had Rojo, and I haven't had exposure to the league winners, where it's like this year, it's looking like I have exposure to the league winners potentially. And the only massive zero in my bag right now is looking like Rashad Penny. How are you feeling about the FFPC decision to not draft Pierce with Davis and Kyle? Feeling great about that right now, obviously, to have Swift here versus Pierce, who, again, I think Pierce would be a great running back if his O-line was healthy, but hard to predict a team losing 4 O-linemen to start the game. How about Dotson start? Yeah, I don't know, man. Like Sam Howell looks okay in some ways, but they're just they're using too many guys. It's Terry, it's him, it's Logan Thomas, it's Curtis Samuel, it's B-Rob. So like anytime a not great passing offense is using a lot of different guys, it's hard to get great usage from those players. I still like Kelly with Eckler. Yeah, I mean, he could be a total league winner for sure. Yeah, the ship chasing crew eating crow right now. Yeah, they were like so confident just because Davis, Kyle, and I had some disagreements. They were like, ha 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 ha, sniffing each other's farts or whatnot. I gave them shit on Twitter. They didn't quite like it, but we're 2-0 in that league. My main events are going great. I'm 2-0 in 2 of them, 1-1 in the other 2, but strong teams. Best Ball Mania 4. I think we'll end this with any players you guys are curious for my exposures list. Let me know and I'll show you them. The only ones I like noticeably and hoping I had more of right now is Mostert. However, I mean, Mostert could fall off any week for sure. I've seen this too, guys, where some people don't realize that when you sort your exposures, you need to sort by entry fee to see only your Best Ball Mania 4 ones. So I'm sorting by the $25 price point right here. DeAndre Swift is on my top 10 list at 17%. Any Josh Reynolds? No. Yeah, I mean, like Reynolds is fine. I didn't draft Reynolds because I think Jameson Williams is clearly going to be the wide receiver 2 at worst when he returns. And it was either Reynolds or Khalif Raymond or Marvin Jones for the wide receiver 3. Hunter Henry, I got more on 20 round sites. 2 teams of Hunter Henry. Any Craig Reynolds? Probably not. I thought about it, honestly. Cousins, I wish I had more Cousins who like is drawing live to be the QB1 this year, 6%. I drafted more Richardson, which like I still think Richardson, 18%, honestly, had more before. 2-2, I have 4 teams of 2-2, more on 20 round sites. Latavius Gore, I think you mean Latavius Murray. Some in the high stakes. Puka Nacua, only 1 team in BBM4. I think I have like 7 Puka shares across my Best Ball Mania or all my portfolio here. Tank Dell, yeah, because I didn't draft Robert Woods, so I got 3 teams with Tank Dell. Obviously, wish I had a little bit more with how good he's looking. And like all my Tank Dell shares came early. Showing that I practice what I preach, like the teams I don't draft players from, as far as like the passing game is like Chicago. I don't have a lot of the Bears passing offense. That feels great right now. 3% Mooney, 3% Claypool, less than 1% DJ Moore, less than 1% Komet. Have more Roschon and Herbert than Foreman. That feels nice. Not a bunch of Fields, which like, I don't know, feels okay. The Steelers, like I drafted Jalen Warren because I think he's explosive. I did not draft a lot of Deontay, Pickett, Freiermuth, Najee, Pickens, or Washington. Mechie, yeah, I got more Mechie. 7 teams of Mechie. Najee, 2 teams of Najee, just like one of the easiest fades out there. Pierre Strong, got 1 team with Pierre Strong back when he was a Patriot. Nico Collins, 12%, but almost all my Nico teams are really early before he got expensive, because he was like a 13th rounder for a while. So feel great about that. Yeah, just like running through some of my top exposures. Kincaid, 50%. Feel great about him. Almost had a touchdown last week. They're like trying to get him a touchdown. Gabe Davis, feel great about him. Scored a touchdown. Spike week guy. Charbonnet is a 0 right now, but you know he's seeing the field. Contingent upside / will get more work as the season goes on. Warren, I feel good about. Tony Pollard, I feel great about. Slayton, he's cheap. He's running routes. Kirk, nice to see him. Like, just as I wasn't convinced Kirk was down to 0 after last week, I'm not convinced Mike Evans is like a league winner. We're early, guys. Hawkinson feels great, but like he needs to do that type of stuff to produce. Tank Bigsby, you know, it's early for him. JSN, it's early for him. Mike Williams has been a little disappointing. Josh Allen, I feel fine about. I think, again, what I think will happen with the Bills is teams are going to make him prove he can beat this cover 2. He's going to do it in a couple weeks, and then they're not going to just sit with 2 safeties deep. Richardson, I feel great about. Gainwell, hurt, but I feel good he's in the mix. Chase, I think Chase is going to be a low advance rate player for now, which, like, I'm okay. If I could advance 5 Chase teams, that's so huge for trying to win the stupid $3 million. Sam Laporta, 18%. Rashad Penny, feels like a 0 for now, but could be a late season hammer. Hodgins, fine, score a touchdown. Michael Thomas, not dead. Like, you know, as long as he's healthy, he's in the mix. Christian Watson, still feel great about him, especially like Love has been fine. He's not going to throw 3 touchdowns every week. Like he's like being like way too efficient, but feel good there. Swift, smash. Damian Harris, meh. Like he'll have touchdowns some weeks. Kyron, smash. Ramondre, fine. Ridley, think he's going to be a smash. Jameson Williams, I think he will smash, but we'll see on him. Devonta Smith, feel great about him. Singletary, not feeling great about him. Rashid Shaheed, feel great about him. Amon-Ra, feel great about him. Hope he's healthy. Spears, feel great about. Hollywood, I mean, some of this Hollywood got real cheap towards the end, but I think Hollywood is perfectly serviceable. He's getting targets. He's getting touchdowns. Ken Walker, feel good about. You can see I have Walker and Charbonnet near the top. Quinn Johnston, not great. A.J. Brown, better days ahead. Geno Smith, kind of surprised he had a good game without his tackles. Mingo, I'm worried about him. OBJ, worried about. James Cook, smash. Kendre, I think will be good when he plays. Goff, feel good about. Knox, feel good about. Because like the Bills' offense right now is Knox, Kincaid, Cook, Diggs, Davis, a little bit Latavius Murray, a little bit of Damian Harris. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, feel great about. DPJ, Spike Week guy, MVS Spike Week guy. Sam Howell, feel good about. Deontay Hardy, do not feel good about, especially because this came at the expense of Tutu Atwell, in my mind, where, I don't know, got a little blinders there for him. Gibbs, feel good about. Gibson, do not feel great about. Chuba, feel great. Jeff Wilson, I think, will play. Debo good. Kittle good. Trying to bet on good offenses. Brees good. Bateman no good. Bryce Young not great. Hurts great. Waller good. Burks, nice to see Burks get some downfield usage. So yeah. Cam Akers, a little high on this list actually. Surprised that he's 10%, but all of the Cam Akers drafts for me are early in the season. And this just shows how like you should change as a drafter, because I started the draft cycle being like, yeah, Cam Akers could be a league winner. And then probably the months of July, August, September, I don't think I drafted Cam Akers one single time. So shifted quick against him. Jerick McKinnon, we'll see what he's got. Bunch of the guys who are Chubb, I only had 4% Chubb. I only have Saquon, I had 9%. Eckler, only 2 teams of Eckler. I think Eckler's like a good player, but with Eckler and Chubb, it was just a little bit worrisome of how many touches they've had, plus their age. I don't think Michael Thomas is going to break out, man. Like, did you stack Pittman and A-Rich a lot? No, I did not. I got a lot of Richardson, but not a lot of Pittman. Only 3 teams with Pittman, and really a lot of that was late. But to me, Richardson, you still don't really need stacked, man. I mean, like last game is like what you want from Richardson, where it was, it's not broken down, but it was like two rushing touchdowns. That's what we want. We want 3 rushing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns a game. Yeah, Najee is a big yikes. I mean, the Najee drafters are just like so down bad. So, sorry if you fall in this boat, but like, it's indefensible. Like I've seen people saying things like, "Oh, well, you know, look how bad his O-line is." Like, okay, that's not good for him. You know, like you drafted the player with the bad O-line. Like you made that choice. Dulcich, I'm leaving the candle on for Dulcich. Only 5%. Honestly, I feel better about him than that. A-Rich could have had a 30 burger, brother. He could have had 40 or 50. He had 17 points in like a quarter. Thoughts on Kyle Pitts upside rest of season? Man, I mean, in managed leagues, I'm legit debating. Like, I would definitely bench Pitts for Dalton Kincaid in like FFPC manage. I would maybe bench him for Hunter Henry, maybe bench him for Dawson Knox. I think he has a high ceiling in a given week. But 8 targets on the season is not great. I think in the games that the Falcons trail, like that's good. But the issue is they're so efficient running the ball, it shortens the game as well. And this schedule does not scream that they're going to be trailing a lot. And like they're winning games, you know? So Jonathan Taylor is not a guy I drafted a lot of, one team. But he's a guy I'm getting a little worried about, because if there's one team that could sell the farm for Jonathan Taylor, it is the Cleveland Browns. They're built to win right now. They just lost Nick Chubb. Their quarterback looks awful. Their passing game looks awful. Their defense is legit. This is a team that needs a healthy Jonathan Taylor, who's arguably like better. Madison, very low on Madison. 4 teams, but all of those were when Madison was a round 100 pick. Just I thought he was bad last year, man. And so wasn't in on that. And I'd rather play the passing game. So that fade's looking good. The guys who's like not looking good is Pierce, 10%, probably even have more in some high stakes. Where would you draft Puka if season ended today and BBM5 dropped tomorrow? Very high. I don't know. Round 3, round 2. Is there a candle burning for Hardman? No, man. I don't think a candle is burning for any of the Jets, as long as Zach Wilson is the quarterback. I mean, like, if someone else is the quarterback, maybe, but like he's not even playing a lot of snaps, man. What's your outlook for Garrett Wilson? I mean, Garrett Wilson is a stud, but it's dire, man. It's dire with Zach Wilson there. I think Zach Wilson is better than last year. I think Zach Wilson needs to just like close his eyes and just like throw the ball to Garrett Wilson and let good things happen. But it's not great. Yeah, I think JT could smash, especially with all the running back. Mixon, very low on Mixon, literally 0. Fuck Joe Mixon, man. Joe Mixon's a bad person. Mostert, only 7 teams of Mostert. If I go to the Dolphins, a lot more Jeff Wilson, more a chain. Tyreek Hill, I'm at the field. Lower on Waddle, Mostert. Didn't get enough Tua, who I actually like literally, I believe Tua had like 30-point ceiling in a game. Who can Jets sign at quarterback? Like no one, but they could trade. Is Zach Charbs still potential league winner? Yeah, man. I mean, you literally just saw this week that Jerome Ford is a league winner. And this speaks to like my mindset where like Mike Leone did a great Best Ball Manifesto thing. And in that Best Ball Manifesto, which I'm going to be honest, like I don't even know if I've read it, but what I know was touted in it is that you cannot risk zeros on your roster. And my logical take of that is like, okay, saying that you can't have like zeros are bad for your team is not groundbreaking stuff. But what's not captured in that is how much is risking a zero when you land on instead Kyron Williams versus Jerome Ford worth, you know, because it's not just what happens if you draft a zero, it's what happens if you take a murky RB2, because what the market does every year or the past 2 years, what the market has done is it's ranked all these running backs in the top 2 rounds. And then you have guys like Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, and we are legit as a fantasy community not drafting their backups. Last year, I had one of like 10 Deion Jackson teams in the whole tournament, and I came on that by being like, who's the backup to Jonathan Taylor? And we are not drafting that guy, by the way. And it ended up being Deion Jackson, and Deion Jackson had like one game, and I was like, wow, like this is lit. But like the market is very bad at taking the like gambling on these RB2s, basically, where sometimes you're gonna draft Zach Evans, that sucks. But the other times you're gonna draft Kyron Williams. Sometimes you're gonna draft Isaiah Spiller, that sucks. But the other times you're gonna draft Josh Kelly. And so risking that zero is so worth it for me, almost always at running backs. People are asking about my eliminators. They're doing great right now. How do I show that? Let's see. It's my high stakes. It's weekly winners. I only did 4 of the $50 eliminators. All 3 are moving on. I did 20 of the little eliminators all at the same time. And all of them are moving on except one of the 18 I had left. So going to have 17 out of 20 moving on to week 3. So I don't know. I'm not really checking those teams until later in the season. As long as I got sweat there, it's fun. Didn't get that many weekly winner teams in. Looks like my top team this week was a Sam Howell Burrow team with Robinson, Barkley, Ford. That's fun. Has Pollard too. This is a team I actually drafted with someone else, so I would need to split it if this does well. Counte's Ingram is RB2 and he sucks. So yeah, but I mean, like that's not a team whose RB2 we should have gambled on. The Cardinals RB2, you know, the Browns RB2, yes. The Chargers RB2, yes. You know, it's like it's not brain science. The RB2s that are worth gambling on. My number one regret for my best ball, again, I think I got like a lot right here, is I did not play my fades that cleanly. I did not, you know, like if I'm going to fade Eckler, draft a lot of Josh Kelly. On that one, I legit didn't know if it was Josh Kelly or Isaiah Spiller. So like I did the same thing I just said that the market's bad at, where like I didn't gamble on the RB2. And I got on Kelly. Like once Kelly housed that touchdown in the 3rd preseason game, I started drafting him in like every draft. But is Dalvin Cook? Yes, he's so cooked, man. Is Elijah Mitchell a drop? I don't think you hold on to him because if something happens to CMC, he's a league winner. But like, I don't know. How are you feeling about going Chase over Jefferson now? Yeah, I mean, again, I feel great about it because I stopped going Chase over Jefferson until after Joe Burrow's injury. And if you want to be results oriented and be like, oh, look, Chase is a bad player, I'm sorry, you're just stupid. Because clearly Joe Burrow's injured, man. And like, what am I going to do with that? When I was drafting Chase over Jefferson, Joe Burrow was not injured. So like injuries happen. And again, let's pretend that Jefferson is a 50% advance rate player, aka 50% of the teams in the playoffs have Jefferson, and Jamar Chase is a 2% advance rate player. Who would you rather have in the playoffs? The guy on 50% of teams with the same ceiling, or the guy on 2% of teams? Like that's the difference between trying to win the regular season prize or trying to win the tournament and $3 million. Obviously, you'd want the lower ownership guy. Some years, the chalk guy is going to smash. So Jefferson's going to be 50% owned, and Jefferson's going to score 40 points. And you'll run away with all your Skolansky bucks with your 2% Chase. But I don't feel bad about having Chase at all. Really high ceiling player. Is it a bummer that Joe Burrow's not healthy right now? Yeah, that's a bummer. You high on Rico Dowdle then by your logic? I drafted a lot of Pollard. I drafted, if we filter for Best Ball Mania, Dowdle is a guy I started drafting at the end, especially because he wasn't drafted. So I got 4 teams of Dowdle. I didn't think the Dowdle one was as clean because there's also Deuce Vaughn, right? Where I got 1 team of Deuce Vaughn. So again, like I think fading in general is an easier task than who to draft. It's hard to know, it's a little bit harder to know who's going to define a season versus who sucks. And for example, Najee, easy fade for me. Chubb, maybe I got lucky on the Chubb fade, but to me, for Chubb to bury me, I thought it was so unlikely. He had to be so incredibly efficient and score so many touchdowns. And you could be sitting there and be like, that's what Chubb does. But if a player just needs to be the most efficient running back on the season to bury me, good game. I lose. It's okay to just lose. How is Hunt and Lenny not on a team? That's another one I feel like I played correctly so far, where I did not fool around with these free agent running backs. I drafted instead guys like Kyron, guys like Jerome Ford. Yeah. You faded Chubb and Ford, could still work out? Yeah, 100%. The other reason I wasn't huge on Chubb is I don't like that they play the Jets defense week 17. That's not a game I like for fantasy. What's the bid on Ford? I mean, Ford's not on waivers in any of my competitive leagues, but a very aggressive bid on Ford. I would be viewing Ford as a league winner right now. And Kareem Hunt, if they signs there, is great. But Kareem Hunt, man, looked cooked last year. Surprised by Taysom Hill's usage? No. Jamal Williams went out and he was basically running back. What about James Cook? James Cook, I think you should be feeling real excited about James Cook. He's a guy who I started a little bit down on. Ended up overweight on him. Not I didn't draft him as much in the 6th round, where I still think he can pay that off, but I don't know, guys. We're coming up on 2.5 hours here, so I think we're going to call it for now. If you made it all the way through me, thank you for coming out. Again, please subscribe. I'm on the road to 5K. Today is Tuesday. I will be back Wednesday or Thursday to draft some battle royales and such. We're not going to do the look ahead this week. The Dog Bowl is $4 this week. Shout out Nez from the Badge Bros. He won the $50 version last week to get a ticket to Miami. So I'll do some drafts later this week, a fun slate for the Dog Bowl and the Battle Royale, which is this week it's $30K to first with a competing price point of the $4 Dog Bowl. Friday will be my Pick'em show. I ended up doing, how many did I do? I ended up doing 10 $100 5-pick Pick'ems. I hit on one of the 10, which paid $2,000. So I lost $1,000 on the 10 and made $2,000. So I made a net of $1,000. I think that's a good way to play Pick'ems, where either if you're going to do pick 5, choose a unit, whether that unit is $1 or $10, not financial advice, but let's say it's $1. And so if you get one right for 5 picks, it pays $20. you only need to get 19 or 1 out of 19 right, basically. Or you could do pick 3s, pick 2s if you want a little bit less variance. So appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you, Pat, for the kind words here. Have a great day, guys. We'll be back. This show is every Tuesday, usually around 8 p.m. Eastern. This week it was 8:30. Have a great night, guys. Peace out.